had to the White House when, in the meeting afterwards, in front of the press, you had, and there is Donald Trump. Now let's listen in.
It was a fairly long trip, but worth it. Tremendous things have been accomplished. You probably noticed. Listened to a lot of wonderful speeches from the heads of a lot of wonderful countries. But I want to thank you for joining us at the conclusion of a highly productive NATO summit in the Netherlands. I want to thank them for the royal treatment they've given us. Couldn't have been nicer. And it's a beautiful country, really a beautiful country. Coming in, I saw the most beautiful trees. In fact, I want to bring some back with me. I want to also thank, I had breakfast this morning with the King and Queen, and they're incredible people. I said, your central casting, beautiful people, great people, big, beautiful heart. And I enjoyed that. And also NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who's been terrific. He's been a friend of mine, used to be right here running this wonderful country. Now he's the NATO Secretary General. He's doing a fantastic job. And the Prime Minister, we appreciate everything you've done. And as you know, last weekend, the United States successfully carried out a massive precision strike on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities, and it was very, very successful. It was called obliteration. No other military on earth could have done it, and now this incredible exercise of American strength has paved the way for peace with a historic ceasefire agreement late Monday, and we call it the 12-day war. Spoke to a few people. I guess that just sounded like the right name. It was a 12-day war. And we think it's over. I don't think they're going to be going back at each other. I don't think so. Not only have we dealt decisively with the critical threat of Iran's nuclear program, which was what I wanted. I said, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've said that for 15 years, long before I decided to do the political thing. But we've also reasserted the credibility of American deterrence, which is like no other. The people at NATO said there's never been anything. You know, I rebuilt the entire military during my first term. And we have a great military. We have great generals. Got to know the good ones and the bad ones. We kept the good ones. Over the past 2 days, I was honored to participate in the NATO leaders meeting and also had extremely good individual discussions with the King and the Queen, Secretary General Rutte, and the Prime Minister. Great discussions. Very knowledgeable people. Major focus of our conversations at the summit was the need for other NATO members to take up the burden of the defense of Europe, and that included the financial burden. As you know, it was 2%, and we got it up to 5%. And they said, a couple of them came up to me. One in particular said, sir, we've been trying to get it up to 3% for 20 years, and we haven't been able, and you got it up to 5%. So they're going to be, most of them, I guess almost all of them, are going to be contributing now 5%, a number that people are surprised at, but you need it today. The United States accounts for 2/3 of all NATO defense spending, and since I began pushing for additional commitments in 2017, believe it or not, our allies have increased spending by $700 billion. I said to people, you don't have any money, and a lot of them weren't paying. And so I started the process, and I picked it up as soon as I got back, which is 6 months ago. And following my election last November, almost all have accelerated plans to reach the 2%, 3%, 4%, and then ultimately, very quickly, 5%. And all of this is going to be done very quickly, almost immediately. You probably know this as well as I do. I'm sure they've been talking about it. It's really been a big focus. In a very historic milestone this week, the NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defense spending to that 5% of GDP, something that no one really thought possible. And they said, you did it, sir, you did it. Well, I don't know if I did it, but I think I did. This will be known as the Hague Defense Commitment, which is pretty good, pretty appropriate. When the allies reach this number, it will add more than $1 trillion a year Think of that, 1 trillion per year to our common defense, and this is a monument really to victory, but it's a monumental win for the United States because we were carrying much more than our fair share. It's quite unfair, actually. But this is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization. For years, past administrations failed to get most allies to contribute even the 2%. I remember when I came here, we had 4 countries that were up to 2%. And I remember Poland was there. A couple of them were there. And but most of them were. We had 28 at the time. As you know, it's increased a little bit. And they've agreed now to more than double their budgets in all cases. And Europe stepping up to take more responsibility for its security will help prevent future disasters like the horrible situation with Russia and Ukraine, and hopefully we're going to get that solved. Last week they lost 7,000 soldiers, mostly soldiers, but they're also getting hit in Kiev. They're getting hit in some of the towns also. And that means life. Life is disappearing also in the cities and towns. Should have never happened, would have never happened if I was president. Said it 1,000 times. And it never did happen. Never even thought about. But it's vital that this additional money be spent on very serious military hardware, not bureaucracy. And hopefully that hardware is going to be made in America because we have the best hardware in the world. You saw that where 14 missiles were shot at us the other day. And they were very nice. They gave us warning. They said, we're going to shoot them. Is 1 o'clock okay? They said, it's fine. And everybody was emptied off the base, so they couldn't get hurt except for the gunners. They call them the gunners. And out of 14 high-end missiles that were shot at the base in Qatar, all 14, as you know, were shot down by our equipment. Amazing stuff. Amazing that they can do. It's like shooting a bullet with a bullet. It's the same thing if you think about it. 14 out of 14, and they weren't even that surprised. I said, "Did you do that well often?" They say, "We pretty much do, sir." The Ukraine crisis has also highlighted the urgency of rebuilding our defense industrial base, both in the United States and among the allied nations. We cannot afford to be dependent on foreign adversaries for critical minerals. And as you know, we made a deal with Ukraine to take a vast amount of the land they have for minerals. We need it. And once again, I want to thank all of the people in the Netherlands, incredible people. It's a great place. And all of the NATO allies for the tremendous summit that we just had. A letter just came in, and a statement came in from the Atomic Energy Commission of Israel. And I just wondered, this is an official letter, and they're very serious people, as you know. The devastating U.S. strike on Fordo destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility totally inoperable. It was devastated. We assess that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities has set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons for many years to come. This achievement can continue indefinitely if Iran does not get access to nuclear material, which it won't. It's so sad that that whole thing had to go. But I just want to thank our pilots. You know, they were maligned and treated very bad, demeaned by fake news CNN, which is back there, believe it or not, wasting time, nobody's watching them. So they're just wasting a lot of time, wasting my time. And the New York Times, they put out a story that, well, maybe they were hit, but it wasn't bad. Well, it was so bad that they ended the war. It ended the war. Somebody said in a certain way, you know, that it was so devastating, actually. If you look at Hiroshima, if you look at Nagasaki, you know, that ended a war too. This ended a war in a different way, but it was so devastating. Also, they have out of Dubai, just came that Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, this is Iran's foreign ministry, says its nuclear installations were very badly damaged by the American strike. So what bothered me about these reports with fake reports put out by the New York Times, failing, I call it the failing New York Times because it's doing terribly. Without me, it would be doing no business at all. But, and by fake news, CNN and MSDNC, all of these terrible people, you know, they have no credibility. You know, when I started, they were at 94% credibility, the media. Now it's at 16%. And I'm very proud of it because I've exposed it for what it is. But when I saw them starting to question the caliber of the attack, was it bad? Well, it was really bad. It was devastating. They were obliterated. In fact, you can't get into the tunnels. They just put that over. That just came out. They can't, there's nothing, there's no way you can even get down. The whole thing is collapsed in a disaster. And I think all of the nuclear stuff is down there because it's very hard to remove. And we did it very quickly. When they heard we were coming, it was, you know, you can't move it. Very hard, very dangerous, actually, to move to. And they also knew we were coming, so I don't think too many people want to be down there knowing we're coming. With the bunker busters, as we call them, we're the only ones that have them. We have the best equipment, best nuclear equipment, and we have the best equipment in the world. And by the way, we can't forget our submarine, which was out there, submarines actually, but submarine was out there. We shot 30 rockets into an area, every single one of them. I think it was almost 400 miles away, I think, Pete, right? 400 and long. It was in the ocean, long ways away. And we shot a total of 30. Every single one of them hit within 9 inches from where it was supposed to be. It took it a lot because we didn't do just Fordo. We did 2 others in addition, which hadn't been completely destroyed. So we hit them with a submarine from hundreds of miles away. Amazing, just amazing equipment. Greatest submarines in the world. Nobody's even close. They're 20 years behind us when it comes to submarine technology. So that's one, and the other was from the Atomic Energy Commission, and they have about 3 or 4 of them now coming in from atomic energy commissions from various places. But the one that we have that just came out, we released it a little while ago, was from the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission, but numerous of them are getting to see the site, and the site has been demolished. And again, we had these brave patriots, these incredible flyers, these people that can fly a plane better than anybody can fly a plane, going into very hostile territory, flying into the territory that has got more missiles and things pointed at it. But it was very stealth. They didn't get to see it. It was dark. That's the amazing thing about the shots. They hit the shots perfectly, and yet it was dead dark. There was no moon. There was no light. It was virtually moonless. It was very dark, and the shots were hit perfectly. But when they get demeaned, and they were very upset about it because they knew how strong it would be. Back in Missouri, the pilots flew about 36 hours, 2 ways, far distance, and in those incredible B-2s. And we then had the F-22s, and we had the F-35s, and we had other planes, and we had, I think, a total of 52 tankers. That means the big tankers, because the refueling was a lot for all of the different planes that we sent. Incredible operation, and I have to say, General Raisin Cain was incredible. That's why he beat ISIS, and we beat ISIS in a matter of weeks. I was told it would take 4 to 5 years. We did it in a few weeks, and he was great. That's why he's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff right now, because I had a very good experience with him. He knocked out ISIS in a period of literally a few weeks. Amazing. And it was supposed to take a few years, 5 years to be exact. So we had a great victory there, and we then came here, and I think we had a great victory here. But this is an ongoing project. This is the safety of Europe, the safety of the world. And they've raised it from 2% to 5%, something which nobody, and you're talking about over $1 trillion a year. So we're talking about a lot of money from coming in from countries that we're not paying nearly enough to be effective. So I have, as you know, Marco Rubio with me, and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State and Secretary of War. Should we say Secretary? You know, it used to be called Secretary of War. Maybe for a couple of weeks we'll call it that, because we feel like warriors. It used to be called Secretary of War. In fact, if you look at the old building next to the White House, you can see where it used to be Secretary of War. Then we became politically correct, and they called it Secretary of Defense. I don't know, maybe we'll have to start thinking about changing it, but we feel that way. Do we have any questions, please? Wow. That's a lot of questions. Who's a nice person? Oh, you're not a nice person, but I'll let you ask one. Go ahead. What's he going to ask? He is not nice at all. I know him well.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time before flying home. You just said you believe the conflict between Israel and Iran is over. What makes you so confident it is? And what do you do if it isn't?
Because I dealt with both, and they're both tired, exhausted. They fought very, very hard and very viciously, very violently, and they were both satisfied to go home and get out. And can it start again? I guess someday it can. It could maybe start soon. I think a big telltale sign was when, as you know, Iran somewhat, by not much, violated the ceasefire. And Israel had the planes going out that morning, and there were a lot of them, 52 of them. And I said, you got to get them back. And they brought them back. They didn't do anything. They brought them back. It was very good. I thought it was amazing, actually. They have fought a hell of a war. They fought very hard. I think the war ended, actually, when we hit the various nuclear sites with the planes. And I just hope you people can give these pilots, these are the best pilots in the world. They're the best shots in the world. They call them shots. That's what they are. And wait a minute. And I just hope you can give them the respect they deserve, because they came home to fake news. And like, oh, gee, there was hardly any damage. The things are decimated. So, but I think, no, I think they're very much finished. I think Israel's going to get back to doing what they do. And I think that Iran's going to get back. You know, Iran has a huge advantage. They have great oil, and they can do things. I don't see them getting back involved in the nuclear business anymore. I think they've had it. They've been at it for 20 years, and I don't see that happening either. Now, if it does, we're always there. It won't be me. It'll be somebody else, but we're there. We'll have to do something about it. Yes, please, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, fake news CNN?
Here, I'll hold it.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Wait till you hear this question.
Thank you, sir.
You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have two questions for you, Mr. President. You just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of the impact of the strikes?
No, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given, that Pete can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site. And the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out. Okay, question? Please, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, blue dress.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Yesterday, you said China can now continue to purchase oil from Iran.
Yeah.
Are you giving up on your maximum pressure campaign? Because there are sanctions right now.
With who?
On Iran.
No, look, they just had a war. The war was fought. They fought it bravely. I'm not giving up. They're in the oil business. I mean, I could stop it if I wanted. I could sell China the oil myself. I don't want to do that. They're going to need money to put that country back into shape. We want to see that happen. Would it? No, if they're going to sell oil, they're going to sell oil. We're not taking over the oil. We could have, you know. I used to say with Iraq, keep the oil. I could say it here, too. We could have kept the oil. No, China is going to want to buy oil. They can buy it from us. They can buy it from other people. But you're going to have to put that country back into shape. It desperately needs money. Yeah.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please. Here we go. I'm picking the beauties today. Go ahead.
Mr. President, Secretary General Rutte has described President Putin as an adversary, a threat, an enemy. Do you view him the same way? And in addition to that, you mentioned General Kane, your chief of staff, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
General Kane.
Yes, he has said that Mr. Putin has territorial ambitions beyond Ukraine. Do you view that in the same way?
Possible.
President?
I mean, it's possible. I know one thing. He'd like to settle. He'd like to get out of this thing. It's a mess for him. He called the other day. He said, "Can I help you with Iran?" I said, "No, you can help me with Russia." Because, you know, in the last few weeks, we took care of India and Pakistan, Kosovo, Serbia. I think on Friday we have coming in, the Congo is coming in, and Rwanda is coming in. That was a vicious war that went on, a machete war. Heads chopped off all over Africa. They're coming in. We did 2 others in addition to that. Nobody's ever done anything like this. No, I consider him a person that's, I think, been misguided. I'm very surprised, actually. I thought we would have had that settled easy. I've settled 4 of them in the meantime. But he did call up and he said, you know, he's close to Iran. He'd like to help us get a settlement. I said, no, you help me get a settlement with Russia. And I think we're going to be doing that too. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've made clear your position on what impact the strikes had. I wanted to ask you what is next with Iran. For instance, is there any indication from U.S. intelligence that Iran was able to move any material, including
No, we just the opposite. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move. It's called in many people, they call it dust, but it's very, very heavy. It's very, very hard to move. And they were way down, you know, they're 30 stories down. They're literally 30, 35 stories down underground.
Got it all.
Oh yeah, we think it's covered with granite, concrete, and steel.
Can I ask you, are you interested in restarting negotiations with Iran? And if so, have they reciprocated?
So
or is
our
this
people,
sort of a settled
Marco
matter?
could answer this, but our people are not, I'm not. The way I look at it, they fought, the war's done, and, you know, I could get a statement that they're not going to go nuclear. We're probably going to ask for that, but they're not going to be doing it. But they're not going to be doing it anyway. They've had it. They've had it. Now, maybe someday in the future we'll want that. But I've asked Marco, do you want to draw, I just asked him the question as we were walking on the stage, do you want to draw up a little agreement for them to sign? Because I think we can get them to sign it. I don't think it's necessary. Marco, do you want to talk about that, please?
Mr. President, I think President Trump has shown a willingness to meet and talk to anybody in the world who's interested in peace. I don't know of any president that's been as willing as he has to meet with anyone and talk about peace. We'd love to have peaceful relations with any country in the world. And so obviously that'll depend on Iran's willingness not just to engage in peace, but to negotiate directly with the United States, not through some third country or fourth country process. But I know of no president, probably in our modern history, that's sought peace more than President Trump has.
Sounds like the door is open, but you're in no rush. Is that right? It sounds like the door is open, but
I'll tell you what, look, we're going to talk to them next week with Iran. We may sign an agreement. I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought. Now they're going back to their world. I don't care if I have an agreement or not. The only thing we'd be asking for is what we were asking for before about we want no nuclear, but we destroyed the nuclear. In other words, it's destroyed. I said, Iran will not have nuclear. Well, we blew it up. It's blown up. The kingdom come. And so I don't feel very strongly about it. If we got a document, wouldn't be bad. We're going to meet with them, actually. We're going to meet with them. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, Netherlands TV, thank you for visiting our country.
Good.
As I
Thank you.
understood, I, of course, would like to know how you slept last night at the House of the King.
Oh, I slept beautifully.
But probably a more serious question. I think you just had a meeting with President Zelensky. Did you discuss any ceasefire in this Russo-Ukrainian war?
No, I wanted to know how he's doing. He was very nice, actually. You know, we had little rough times sometimes. He was couldn't have been nicer. I think he'd like to see an end to this. I do. I think what I took from the meeting couldn't have been nicer, actually. But I took from the meeting that he'd like to see it end. I think it's a great time to end it. I'm going to speak to Vladimir Putin and see if we can get it ended. But look, these are brave people. They're fighting these wars all over the place. You know, last week they had, I guess, I told you, close to 7,000 young soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers were killed, 7,000 in 1 week. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I'll be speaking to Putin. Now, I had a good meeting with Zelensky, and I had a lot of good meetings. We had a lot of good meetings with a lot of people, a lot of great leaders. But he's fighting a brave battle. It's a tough battle. Yeah. Go ahead, white dress.
Thank you. Ida Hallikainen from Finland, Ilta-Sanomat. You have played golf with President Alexander Stubb. How do you see Finland as a NATO ally and partner, and how would you describe your relationship with our president?
Well, he's a very good golfer, okay? In fact, he was on his college golf team. He went to a good college in the South, as you know, a very good college, and he was a good golfer. We had a good time. I think my relationship's great. I want to buy icebreakers. You know, you're very good at icebreakers. And I actually made him an offer. I didn't go to Congress. They'll try and impeach me for this. But there's an old, it's not old, it's fairly new, but it's used icebreaker. And I offered him about 1/3 of what he asked for. But we're negotiating. We need icebreakers in the U.S. And if we can get some inexpensively, I'd like to do that. Actually, they'll fix it up, make it good. Also, we may buy some icebreakers. You know, that you're the king of icebreakers, that particular country. They make them good. They make them really good, and they know what they're doing. And so we're negotiating with them for about 15 different icebreakers, but one of them is available now. It's old, and it's, old. It's like 5-6 years old, and we're trying to buy it. I'm trying to make a good deal. It's all I do my whole life. My whole life, that's all I do is make deals. Yeah, please.
President.
Go ahead. Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, a question for NewsHour, Dutch TV. First of all, on Article 5, on your way here, you spoke about the commitment of the US to Article 5, saying, I'll give you my definition once we're here. What is your definition, and may the US commitment to Article 5 change in case some of the NATO members do not reach the threshold that was discussed today? My second question is following up on a colleague on Iran. What intel reports do say that everything over there was obliterated?
Yeah, well, there are numerous of those reports, and they're coming out fast and furious. But the most respected ones we've already seen. And I will say that on a very confidential basis, they're looking at the reports, like numerous reports, and including people going to the site and checking the site. And they're going to be having, I guess you're going to be having over the next couple of days you're going to encapsulate it. But no, the site was obliterated, just like I said it was. And just like the pilots should be given credit for. As far as Article 5, look, when I came here because it was something I'm supposed to be doing, but I left here a little bit differently. I said, I watched the heads of these countries get up, and the love and the passion that they showed for their country was unbelievable. I've never seen quite anything like it. They want to protect their country, and they need the United States. And without the United States, it's not going to be the same. And you can ask Mark, or you can ask any of the people that were there. It was really moving to see it. They loved their country. They were so respectful of me because I'm the head of the United States. And I made, the King of Saudi Arabia, when I was in the Middle East. So I was in Qatar for a different reason, not a reason to get shot at. We were in there for economic development reasons, Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. All three leaders of those countries, and we took back $5.1 trillion into the United States. All three leaders said, you're presiding over the hottest country in the world. The United States right now is the hottest country. Everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants a piece of it. He said, a year ago, your country was dead. You had a deadhead running it. You had a country that was dead, and it was dead. You had people pouring through the borders. You had inflation. You had everything. He said, you've made it in 5 months at that time. You've made it the hottest country. This is the hottest country in the world. The United States right now is the hottest country in the world. And when I was around that table, it was a nice group of people, many of whom I knew from previous. When I saw the passion they had for the country, and almost everyone, and you probably have the tapes, it was very public, but almost every one of them said, thank God for the United States. Without the United States, they couldn't really have NATO. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. It will in the future because now they're paying much more money, but it wouldn't work. It was great. And I left here differently. I left here saying that these people really love their countries. It's not a ripoff, and we're here to help them protect their country. Okay, we'll do one or two more.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
A question on Spain. Are you satisfied with today?
Oh, I think Spain's terrible what they've done. No, I do. They're the only country that won't pay the full up. They want to stay at 2%. I think it's terrible. And, you know, they're doing very well. The economy is very well. And that economy could be blown right out of the water with something bad happening. You know, Spain is the only country that... Are you from Spain?
Yeah.
Good, congratulations. You're the only country that is not paying. I don't know what the problem is. I think it's too bad. So we'll make it up. You know what we're going to do? We're negotiating with Spain on a trade deal. We're going to make them pay twice as much. And I'm actually serious about that. We're going to make Spain... I like Spain. I have so many people from Spain that it's a great place and they're great people. But Spain is the only country out of all of the countries that refuses to pay. And, you know, so they want a little bit of a free ride. But they'll have to pay it back to us on trade because I'm not going to let that happen. It's unfair. It's unfair to NATO. All right, sir, please. Go ahead, right in the back. Yeah, you, tall one. The tall man.
Mr. President, Johannes Petra from Austrian National Television.
How are you?
You once said that you would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. You later said you said that sarcastically.
Well, of course it was sarcastic.
But you've now been in office for 5 months and 5 days. Why have you not been able to end the Ukraine war?
Because it's more difficult than people would have any idea. Vladimir Putin has been more difficult. Frankly, I had some problems with Zelensky. You may have read about him. And it's been more difficult than other wars. I mean, look, we just ended a war in 12 days that was simmering for 30 years, frankly. We ended Rwanda and the Congo. They're coming to sign the documents. We've already signed basic documents, but they're coming, I think, to the White House on Friday. We ended Serbia was going to go at it. But maybe the most important of all, India and Pakistan. And that wasn't whether or not they may someday have nukes like we're talking about in the Middle East, like we're talking about with Israel and Iran. This is they have nuclear weapons. I ended that with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, look, if you're going to go fighting each other, it was getting very bad. You know how bad that last attack was. It was really bad. If you're going to go fighting each other, we're not doing any trade deal. No, 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 you have to do a trade deal. I said, we're not doing any trade deal. And in fact, I had the general, who was very impressive. The general from Pakistan was in my office last week. You know, Prime Minister Modi is a great friend of mine. He's a great gentleman. He's a great man. And I got them to reason. I said, we're not doing a trade deal if you're going to fight. And if you're going to fight each other, we're not doing a trade deal. And you know what? He said, no, I want to do the trade deal. We stopped the nuclear war. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff. Here's another beauty, Jeff. He's a beauty, all right. Go ahead.
Mr. President, to follow up on Ukraine, will the United States contribute any more money to Ukraine's defense this year to the $5 billion that allies are giving? And one question, you had another meeting with the Dutch opposition leader, Mr. Wilders. Can you tell us about that meeting? And are you upset about his anti-Muslim stance?
I'm not upset about it. It's just his view. He's unhappy with the way things are going in this country and various countries. He was an opposition leader. And I was asked to meet with the opposition leader by the people that are running. I think they have some deal where if you have a meeting, you're supposed to meet with an opposition leader. I said, that's strange. We don't do that. But I met with I didn't know him. He seemed like a very nice guy, but he's in opposition to the current people, and that was set up by the current people. So I assume when I met with the prime minister, you're supposed to meet with the opposition. We'll have to try that sometime in our country. Let's not do it. But I thought he was very good. As far as money going, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of spirit. Look, Vladimir Putin really has to end that war. People are dying at levels that people haven't seen before for a long time. Go ahead. Go ahead. White shirt. Oh, she's all excited.
Okay. So, BBC News Ukrainian. I would
Where are
like
you
to
from?
ask you. I'm from Ukraine.
Oh.
So my question to you is whether or not the US is ready to sell anti-air missile systems Patriot to Ukraine. We know that Russia has been pounding Ukraine really heavily right now.
Are you living yourself now in Ukraine?
My husband is there.
Wow.
And
I can see you very, it's amazing.
And me with the kids, I'm in Warsaw actually, because he wanted me to be
Is your
there.
husband a soldier? No?
He's
there now?
Yeah.
Wow. That's rough stuff, right? That's tough. And you're living here?
In Warsaw.
And you're a reporter?
I am.
Good. So let me just tell you, they do want to have the missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots. And we're going to see if we can make some available. They're very hard to get. We need them too. We were supplying them to Israel, and they're very effective, 100% effective. Hard to believe how effective. And they do want that more than any other thing, as you probably know. That's a very good question, and I wish you a lot of luck. I mean, I can see it's very upsetting to you. So say hello to your husband, okay? Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. You were criticizing...
Where are you from?
Bloomberg News.
Oh, Bloomberg. That's wonderful.
You were criticizing the Federal Reserve Chair before coming to this summit.
Yeah, I think he's terrible.
I was wondering if you've begun interviewing different candidates for the Fed pick.
Yeah, I know within 3 or 4 people who are going to pick. I mean, he goes out pretty soon, fortunately, because I think he's terrible. We have no inflation. We have a tremendous economy. Hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is pouring in. Factories are being built because they don't want to pay the tariffs, so they're building them all over the country. I think we're close to $15 trillion. I told you $5.1 trillion from the Middle East alone, but of investment money coming in. There's never been anything like that in the history of our country. But we have no inflation. And we have borrowing because Biden, stupidly, they did short-term debt. So we have borrowing coming up. And, we'll go 10 years, maybe longer, maybe shorter, but we'll go a long period of time when we do the debt. And because of him, because of this guy, we will have to pay for years. We'll be paying for him. And I said to him, listen, there's no inflation. He says, but maybe there'll be some. That's true. I said, if there is some, what you do is raise the rate. I'm okay with that. You raise the rate in 2 years from now or in a year from now. But because the rate's high, we have to pay more for debt. It's pretty equal. In other words, if it's 4%, it's 4%. If you drop it a point, you'll pay 3%. So it's fairly equal, not necessarily, but fairly equal. So we're going to end up paying maybe 2 points or 3 points more. 3 points would be about $900 billion a year because of this very average mentally person. He's an average mentally person. I'd say low in terms of what he does, low IQ for what he does, okay? Right. So instead of paying $900 billion, we don't want to pay 900 just because he doesn't want to lower the rate. I said, if there's inflation in 2 years or 3 years or 1 year from now, you raise the rate and you take care of the inflation, among other things. But he's probably a very political guy, I guess. I don't know. I think he's a very stupid person, actually. All right, one more. Let's go. How about you? Go ahead. She looks so happy and everything.
Thank you. I'm from Spain too. I'm Ana Buch from La Vanguardia. I wanted to know if
You're where from?
Spain too. I wanted to know if you want to
That's the Spain corner right there. Shouldn't have said that. That's okay. I do like Spain, by the way. I think it's unfair that they're not paying, but go ahead.
Are you going to negotiate directly with Spain about...
I'm going to negotiate directly with Spain. I'm going to do it myself. They're going to pay. They'll pay more money this way. You should tell them to go back and pay. You're a reporter? Tell them to go back. They ought to join all of those countries that are paying 5%. Spain's going to be just about the only one that's not. They were the most hostile toward doing it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. All right, Kelly, go ahead. Here we go. Here's another one.
Thank you very
We
much.
got them all today.
Okay. So, Mr. President, you talked about expecting some on-the-ground assessments at Fordo and other sites.
Now here-
Is that
here again.
Israeli and U.S.?
It's been obliterated, Kelly. It's been
What is your message then, sir, to the intelligence community when they present reports? You're not disputing the DIA report. You're just
They presented a
exists.
report that wasn't finished. We're talking about something that took place 3 days ago.
I understand that, sir.
The
It's an
report was
initial
done
assessment. So
2
what
days
is
ago.
your...
Wait a minute.
Yes.
They didn't see it. All they can do is take a guess. Now, if you take a look at the pictures, if you take a look how it's all blackened, you know the fire and brimstone is all underground because it's granite and it's all underground. You don't show it. But even there, with all of that being said, the whole area for 75 yards around the hole where it hit is black with fire. The group that's run by this gentleman, in fact, you may want to talk about it for a second because we're going to issue a report. And I think it's not even a very exciting report at this point. It's been obliterated, totally obliterated. And they did a report, but it was like, if you look at the dates, it's just a few days after it
Understood,
happened.
sir.
So they didn't see it. They said it may be very severe. Go
Understood.
ahead.
Do you have a message for the intelligence community, though, in terms of unvarnished information getting to you, that it's not...
I don't really have a message. I would say issue the report when you know what happened. I wouldn't say that it could be severe or maybe not. They use the word severe. It could be severe or maybe it's not.
And
so people like you picked up and said, oh, it's not severe.
We're just
no,
looking for the
the
exit.
report was not a complete report. Yeah, the message was probably wait till you know the answer before you...
And, sir,
Go ahead.
did you not have a public component to your Zelensky meeting for a tactical reason with President Putin?
Let him answer.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that dropped the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
But you're not disputing the report said what it said, even though it was initial.
The report said what it said, and it was fine. It was severe, they think, but they had no idea. They shouldn't have issued a report until they did. But we've gotten the information. I think Pete said it better than you can say it. And, you know, you should be proud, you, especially you, should be proud of those pilots. And you shouldn't be trying to demean them.
No, there's
those pilots flew at great risk, a big
the
chance that
skill
they've
of
never
the
come
US
back home and see their husbands
one
or
is
their
questioning
wives.
the skill
Let
of
me
the
just
US
tell you,
military.
you and NBC, fake news, which is one of the worst, and CNN, New York Times are all bad. They're sick. There's something wrong with them. You know what? You should be praising those people instead of trying to find some. By getting me, by trying to go and get me, you're hurting those people. They were devastated. You know, I got a call from Missouri, great state, that I won 3 times by a lot. And I got a call that the pilots and the people on the plane were devastated because they were trying to minimize the attack. And they all said it was hit. but we don't think it was really maybe hit that badly. And they were devastated. They put their lives on the line, and then they have, and I'm not referring to you, but real scum come out and write reports that are as negative as they could possibly be. It should be the opposite. You should make them heroes and heroines. You should make them really people that they were so devastated when they heard this news. And you know what they said? One of them, I spoke to one of them, said, "Sir, we hit the site. It was perfect. It was dead on," because they don't understand fake news, because they have a normal life, except they have to fly very big, very fast planes. But it's a shame. You should be making them heroes. All right, in the back. Go ahead, back, white, yeah. White jacket, yeah. Go ahead, give my mic. Hello.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own without...
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning, and I think they'll be able to, and I think they're going to remember this day. And this was a big day for NATO. You know, this was a very big day. They took it. One of the gentlemen said, "You know what? We've been trying to raise money raise the rate for 30 years," he said, 20 years, from almost the beginning. And he's been there for a long time. He said, "Until you came along, it never happened. What you did is amazing." It's been sort of an amazing day for a lot of reasons, but also for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think they can do it without you, though, in the future? Can they do it without the
ask
United
Mark.
States?
I mean, you have to ask Mark, okay? So we're heading back. We're heading back. I want to thank these two gentlemen behind me. They're incredible people, both of them. They've done a fantastic job. And Susie's in the front, and she's done great. And Monica, thank you very much. It was quite an exciting time. And we're going to be heading back. We'll be back soon, and we'll see you in Washington, D.C. Remember this, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. An astonishing press conference there with Donald Trump at The Hague. Where do you start? It contained everything. $1 trillion extra of defense spending. 5% done more for NATO spending in 5 months than perhaps anybody since NATO was formed in 1949. Let's get straight now to our Homeland Security editor, Mark White, for some analysis. Mark, it was simply incredible. Where do you even begin? He declared war on the media. He declared war financially on Spain. He thanked everybody in NATO. No matter what you think about Donald Trump, that was pure opera. It was just overwhelming, so much detail. Mark White, what leapt out to you?
Yeah, he never disappoints, really, does he, in terms of you just never know what he's going to say. Quite a few lines out of there, I think, that are newsworthy. I think the most newsworthy line is a confirmation that the US will meet with Iran next week. Donald Trump said that he's not that bothered if they actually come to an agreement, because the other news line out of this, as he was having a very clearly irritated pop at the US media, CNN, NBC, New York Times and others, for demeaning what those airmen and women who went into Iran to carry out the bombing raids on these nuclear installations had done. He said actually the intelligence that they've got back was that there was very significant damage done in particular to the Fordo nuclear complex, that one complex that's buried deep in the mountainside there. And the information that they have, the intelligence that they have, according to Donald Trump, is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program has been set back, not months, as has been reported, but he says many years. And that came up time and time again with various reporters that he went to, that he said, we've got a beauty here, as he went to CNN or NBC or whoever it was, just to hammer home that message that, you know, despite what they say, they, from their own intelligence, from Israeli intelligence, from those that have been on the ground, and just from the actions, he said, of Iran, determined to come round the table quickly and end this, was the acknowledgement that that nuclear enrichment programme had been severely damaged. So on that point, I think that was interesting with regard to the situation in Iran and Israel, and that promising news of a meeting, at least, even if they don't come away with any kind of signed agreement at the end of it. With regard to NATO, I think he came as close as he's done to saying that he is going to abide by NATO Article 5, that code within Article 5 that an attack on one is an attack on all. He said that in the room he was very touched by the love, of course, that these NATO members have for their own countries, and also very encouraged by the fact that all NATO members are now committing to reaching 5% of their GDP on their military spending, all except Spain. And you alluded to it there. Yes, he had a pop twice at Spain, and he said he couldn't fathom why Spain was so reluctant, really, to go and actually reach that 5%. And if he can't get it through defence, he's going to get it through tariffs.
He said they'll pay more this way. They'll regret taking me on. Astonishing press conference. Thank you, Mark White, for summarising it excellently as ever. Good reaction now. Back in the studio, I'm joined by GBNews, a senior political commentator all day. Of course, it's Wednesday, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, you and I sat through that. It was astonishing, so much detail. But I want to talk to you about some calculations you've done. 5% extra means a heck of a lot of money extra for British taxpayers to cough up. You worked out how much that is, and it's an eye-watering sum of money.
It is, yes. So broadly, what Keir Starmer has said is 4.1% by 2027. That would cost us an extra £50 billion, wow, which basically doubles the defence budget as it stands today. Then, if he goes to 5%, it's another 25 billion on top of that. So we're talking 75 billion from now to actually going to the 5%. If you take that first figure, that 50 billion, and you put it on income tax, basic rate income tax, we'd see a 7p rise in the pound in income tax. I don't see how this kind of money can come from cuts. You are looking at probably tax rises.
Astonishing to think about that. This all costs a heck of a lot of money. And then meanwhile, the UK government is set to buy 12 new fighter jets that can be equipped with nuclear bombs and join NATO's airborne nuclear division. Let's get the opinion now of the former RAF fighter pilot and the instructor, Tim Davies. Tim, always a pleasure to have your company. You no doubt sat through that press conference with Donald Trump, as we did, utterly captivated. What do you think it means for Britain?
Well, bringing these jets in, yeah, it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. It gives us the capability now to go into the dual capable aircraft mission program, which is bringing tactical nuclear weapons back into the armory. We've got strategic, of course, on the Vanguard submarines with the Trident, and we're building the Dreadnought. But of course, we don't have those tactical nuclear weapons. Something to remember, though, of course, they're going to be controlled by America as they are for the rest of the European countries. And that's something, obviously, that's quite important that we take into account.
And Tim, there's a lot of talk there about all of this extra money, $1 trillion a year. Donald Trump quite clearly making a play there. He wants his money to be spent with American companies. So this could be a heck of a lot of money that British taxpayers have got to cough up that might be going straight into Donald Trump's coffers.
Yeah, well, America's for America. Don't forget that. People always forget this. America is about America. Throughout history, America has been about America. So it depends what you want to do, doesn't it? If you want to be part of that NATO table and you want to have close ties to America, you want to buy American products, of course, then you spend money with America and the British people never see that money. Or, of course, you bring it in. It's supposed to create 20,000 jobs for this new F-35A variant, of course, going through 100 different British companies. And, of course, you try and bring as much of that as you possibly can back into the UK economy.
Now, Tim Davies, is fair to say Sir Keir Starmer's having a bit of a nightmare back here in Britain, but do you think he had a result today at The Hague?
Oh, you know what? You're talking about some deep politics now and everything. It's not. I mean, I'm a specialist in aviation more than anything. I'm not going to be there you know how it is, Martin, sort of try and do that. I'm not a massive fan of Starmer. And whenever I come on your program, you do this to me every single time, by the way, because you know I'm going to react to it. So I'm not going to react today. All right, you bring the experts in.
Superb stuff. And thank you for waiting patiently in the wings there, pun intended. I know you've been watching that entire Trump press conference. Can I just ask you quickly, as an ally of the United Kingdom, is Donald Trump an asset? He's unpredictable, he's a firebrand. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I like the guy. Yeah, but then again, you know, I can understand. I mean, it depends what you're looking at, all right? If you're looking at politics on a very veneer surface level, of course, you see him as this misogynistic, orange man, bad person. But look what he's doing. He's getting everyone to step up, actually, and drop that 5%, that necessary GDP into defence. We should be doing that. Of course, we should be doing that. It's jobs for people as well. So, absolutely, I think he's a friend of the UK. I think we are a friend of him as well. Don't listen to all these naysayers. He's doing good work out there. He truly is.
I think you're absolutely right, and he's probably done more for spending from NATO than anybody else has done since it was formed in April 1949. Tim Davies, huge fan of your work as well. Thank you for waiting patiently and appearing on the show today. Appreciate your time. Now, we've got loads more to discuss after the break. Nigel Nelson, quickly, I've got a quick 30 seconds. Is Donald Trump now an ally of the UK?
Yes, but it's going to cost us a lot of money.
I think that's a fair point, and that is what we're going to be analysing after the break. That is a heck of a lot of money. Is it 50 billion quid extra we've got to find to pay for all of this? Where on earth is that going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to be feeling the burn? Who's going to feel the pinch? That is all coming next. Full analysis of that astonishing Donald Trump speech with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But first, here's your weather with Honor Krizik.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a rather cloudy evening, some outbreaks of rain, these possibly turning thundery across the southeast, but for all it is set to be a warm, muggy and rather uncomfortable night. But it's really this feature towards the Bay of Biscay pushing its way towards the south and southeast that we do need to keep our eye on. A chance we could see some quite heavy showers pushing their way northwards, moving into parts of Kent and East Anglia through the course of the night, and these potentially turning quite thundery and possibly quite blustery through the course of the evening, eventually clearing away towards dawn. But even in the west, some heavy outbreaks of rain pushing through here, particularly across western parts of Scotland. But for all, it is set to be warm, muggy, quite uncomfortable. Many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to high teens. So yes, it is set to be a rather wet start, particularly across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall. Still some heavy showers starting to clear their way through East Anglia, and similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, plenty of low cloud around and some outbreaks of rain. And western Scotland in particular, some quite heavy, possibly blustery outbreaks here too. And through the course of the morning, it's likely many areas will see some outbreaks of rain. But this feature slowly pushing its way eastward, so across the west, it will start to brighten up from around mid-morning. Plenty of sunny spells by around midday across Northern Ireland, and for all as we head into the afternoon, turning much brighter, more sunshine and feeling a lot fresher too. It's not going to feel quite as muggy, and temperatures on the whole are going to be a degree or two down, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, any remnants of rain across eastern areas soon clearing away. There are still going to be some showers, and then we'll eventually see a return of the cloud and rain push its way back through into the west later Thursday evening. And temperatures are on the up once again. It's likely we'll see another heat wave as we head through the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A82 northbound at Tyndrum is restricted due to a road traffic collision. Proceed with caution if you're in the area. In Pentrabach, northbound on the A4060 will close for resurfacing work tonight from 7 to 1 in the morning tomorrow. In Hertfordshire, a collision on the M25 clockwise between junction 16 and junction 17 is causing 30-minute delays. One lane remains closed. Avoid the area if possible. And on the trains, expect Gatwick Express delays between Redhill and Gatwick Airport. London North Western Railway reports reduced services between Bletchley and Bedford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. It's already been an incredible afternoon in politics, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
And US President Donald Trump has praised NATO allies for their commitments to increasing defence spending to 5% of GDP and promised to come to their defence in a short speech. Well, it was an hour-long speech, an epic speech, a short moment ago. We'll have reaction to this incredible moment throughout the rest of today's show. Meanwhile, back in Blighty, Labour is hurtling towards civil war. There's over 130 of their own MPs look set to vote against Keir Starmer's benefits cuts next Tuesday. Now, with Starmer's authority looking in tatters, will his leadership be challenged? And might we then see an early general election? And with over 10,000 foreigners clogging British jails, the government is claiming they're going to deport foreign offenders after serving only 30% of their sentences. The problem? Well, I'll be joined by a human rights lawyer who'll explain why woke lawyers will be doing all they can to derail these plans. And also coming up on the show today,
we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament.
Except they won't, because in another huge embarrassment for the Labour Party, the government's own Borders and Immigration Chief has said we cannot end asylum hotels nor smash the gangs. Why not? Well, we simply don't have enough houses, and people smuggling is simply too lucrative, as we've been saying on this channel since the general election. Once again, have the lunatics taken over the asylum system, and all that's coming in your next hour. Now, that is one heck of a show, and that's before Donald Trump even spoke at The Hague a short while ago. Simply eviscerating speech. $1 trillion extra defence spending he's wrenched out of NATO countries, despite the fact they sat on their hands for decades while America paid the lion's share and kept them safe. Donald Trump doing more in 6 months as president than perhaps any leader has done in since 1949. He also declared full-on nuclear war on the fake news media. He eviscerated them. He took them down. And Spain, which said they won't be paying 5%, Donald Trump just declared a trade war on them in a press conference in real time. So much to unpick. And it's going to cost £50 billion extra per year for you, the great British taxpayer, to fund this defence hike. Where on earth is that money going to come from? The answer, my friends, is simple. Tax rises, and we're all going to be paying. Full analysis throughout the rest of the show. Stick with us. Get in touch, gbnews.com/you'll say. It's a way to do that. Now, it's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. Fast approaching 4 minutes past 4. The top story: US President Donald Trump is claiming credit for NATO's new defence spending deal as the summit enters its final hours. Speaking earlier at a news conference, he said his push for higher contributions since 2017 has led to an extra $700 billion in defence spending across the alliance.
We live in a very volatile world, and today is about the unity of NATO, showing that strength. We're bigger than we were before, we're stronger than we were before. There's a historic commitment in relation to spending. And for me, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, it's important that we play an integral part, because the safety and security of our citizens in the UK is my first duty as Prime Minister. I take that extremely seriously.
Well, those comments from the US President come after NATO members have agreed to increase spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, a major jump from the current 2% target. The summit has seen a flurry of pledges, including from UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, saying the UK will buy 12 nuclear-capable F-35A jets and send hundreds more missiles to Ukraine, funded, he says, by frozen Russian assets. Marcus Ardiuni Monzo has been found guilty of murdering 14-year-old Daniel Angerin during a samurai sword rampage in northeast London. A jury today at the Old Bailey also convicted the 37-year-old of 3 counts of attempted murder, wounding with intent, aggravated burglary and possessing a bladed article. He was cleared of 1 attempted murder charge but found guilty of the lesser offence of causing grievous bodily harm. The attack happened during a 20-minute spree in Hainault last April, in which Monzo targeted members of the public and police officers. Former Home Secretary Sir Sajid Javid is leading an independent inquiry into the causes of last year's Southport riots, sparked by a series of murders in the town. That review, backed by both Sir Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch, aims to go beyond political blame, with Javid saying it's too simplistic to blame the far right. Co-chaired by former Labour MP John Crudas, the Commission will gather views from tens of thousands of people using town visits and AI-powered tools. The goal is to understand the deeper issues behind social division and why many feel abandoned by authority. That cross-party independent inquiry is due to report within 12 months. Angela Rayner has confirmed that Labour will go ahead with the welfare reform vote, standing in for Sir Keir Starmer today at Prime Minister's questions. She said the party won't abandon the millions trapped in the failing system, she says, as pressure mounts over proposed changes to disability and youth support. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, speaking for the Conservative Party, though, pushed back, insisting Labour should meet their conditions for any cross-party backing.
On this side of the House, we are absolutely clear. We will help her to get their bill through if they can commit to actually reducing the welfare bill and getting people off benefits and into work. Can the right honourable lady make that commitment right now? Yes or no?
Well, if ever we needed a reminder of the party opposite having no shames, it's their demands for this bill, Mr. Speaker. He demands a programme to help people into work, exactly what this bill does. After he left 1 in 8 young people out of the economy.
Well, the reforms would tighten access to personal independence payments and reshape welfare for under 22s. But with over 100 MPs, including senior committee chairs, backing an amendment to block the bill, its future is far from certain. Eurostar passengers are facing yet another day of severe disruption after cable theft on the line and 2 separate fatalities in northern France. Around 600 metres of copper cable was stolen, forcing trains to be rerouted and causing major delays between London, Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam. Eurostar says the line has now reopened and no further cancellations are expected today, but delays are to continue long into the evening. Customers can rebook, though, for free or claim a full refund, as crews say they're working to recover from a very challenging situation. In sport, Gareth Southgate says it's an amazing honour to receive a knighthood today at Windsor Castle. The former England boss was knighted by the Prince of Wales for his role leading the Three Lions to 2 European finals in 2020 and, of course, in 2024. Well, joined by his family at the ceremony, Sir Gareth said the experience had made him more emotional than he'd anticipated. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
Thank you, Sam. Let's get cracking because NATO members have confirmed that they've agreed to spend 5% of GDP on defence and security by 2035.
NATO allies have agreed a new defence investment pledge, raising defence and security spending to 5% of GDP by 2035.
And that's 50 billion quid that you have got to cough up. Now, the current NATO target for core defence spending was only 2% of current GDP, which not all members even hit in 2024. But Donald Trump today hailed the EU.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
But will all NATO countries reach this target by 2035? And does it suggest that we should be prepared for war? Well, I'll tell you one thing for free. Donald Trump declared war on the fake news media today. But somebody who isn't a part of that is GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome to the show. So many talking points to talk about today. Let's start with Sir Keir Starmer there. That 5% GDP pledge. Donald Trump has shaken the money tree and it's rattled down and a sum of money which nobody has ever got out of NATO before, but it could be very, very painful for British taxpayers.
It will be very painful. That is a huge increase in defence spending. No clarity at all about how it's going to be paid for. But let's just focus a minute on Donald Trump, because let's face it, Donald Trump is the biggest beast in the NATO jungle, the biggest beast in any jungle, and he is happy. And if Donald Trump leaves this summit happy, as he is doing, the NATO leaders are happy as well. It was all about managing him, pleasing him, placating him, because just a few months ago when he came into power, he was saying they're not paying up, they're freeloading, they need to pay 5%. Now here we are, NATO countries going to have to get to that. That is the price of keeping Donald Trump on side, and he is. He was asked about Article 5, if one NATO country is attacked, everybody will be there for them. He'd been very, very vague about it before, but he was asked in the press conference just gone, and he said, I came here basically because it was something I was supposed to be doing, but then he talked about the love and the passion that the leaders had for their countries. He said it was unbelievable, really moving, and he said almost everyone said, thank God for the United States. Without the United States, NATO wouldn't work. And then he said, we are here to help them protect their countries. There we have it. So they will be delighted. Yes, of course, the problem will be how to pay for it. And just before Donald Trump's press conference, the Prime Minister gave one. He's in a tricky situation at the moment. Let's just have a look at my question to him. Prime Minister, you're making massive pledges on defence going forward into the mid-2030s. But looking at the polls and looking at the number of Labour MPs rebelling at the moment, how confident are you of being around into the next Parliament to implement these plans and also leading Labour into the next election? Thank you.
Very confident. We were elected in absolutely clearly saying we needed 10 years of a national renewal, A decade of national renewal was what we were elected into with a huge majority. It is really important that I lead from the front and take the long-term decisions about the future of our country. And that is why we've made these defence commitments. We are living in a more volatile world. I think everybody in the country accepts that. We have to rise to that challenge.
So the Prime Minister says he intends to lead from the front, and he's very confident of being around to implement these plans. Bear in mind, these are funding projections through into the mid-2030s. Now, looking at the polling, well, Reform is in the lead. Of course, 4 years to the next election, lots could change. And looking at his own party, he's coming back to Britain to a massive rebellion of over 100 of his own MPs. So a great day for him and for NATO leaders, but trouble at home.
Catherine Forster, an excellent report, and your questions to the PM, they really do land like an Exocet missile. Thank you very much for joining us there live from The Hague. And a neat segue back into domestic politics, because the government have confirmed that a vote on the highly anticipated welfare bill will take place next Tuesday. Angela Rayner, the Deputy PM, standing in again for the Prime Minister, the one-to-way PM at PMQs today, confirmed the news amid a mega rebellion of at least 120 Labour MPs that could vote against the government next Tuesday. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political editor Chris Hope, GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and a former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall. Welcome all. Chris, let's start with you. So a victory in The Hague, but could be a massive defeat for the government next Tuesday in Westminster.
Good morning, Martin. Great to see you again. It's worth thinking about what did Angela Rayner say in the House of Commons. She said, we will go ahead on Tuesday with a second reading of this bill. The bill is looking at cuts to PIP. It's called the Universal Credit and Personal Independent Payment Bill. What she says is the second reading will go ahead. What we don't know is whether the Speaker is going to select this amendment, a wrecking amendment, to stop it in its tracks. So if the government goes ahead, it'll be all eyes on the Speaker. This amendment, signed by 122 Labour MPs, and here it is.
Why would it not be selected? It's a huge piece of business.
The Speaker doesn't have to. The Speaker must allow the second reading if the government wants it to take place. The Speaker must select these amendments.
What's it got to do with him?
Because the Speaker selects amendments. That's how this is called democracy, Martin.
This is a huge... Well, no, for the
it won't help the rebellion, by the way.
For the layperson listening at home, now, this is a debate of national significance in the confidence and supply of the government. It should be had.
Yes, and perhaps email the Speaker and tell him so, but it's up to him what he does. He's the Speaker of the House of Commons. And if he chooses... Well, I'm telling the rules rather than you blaming me for it.
No, but that doesn't sound sufficiently...
well, the Speaker can... Listen, Martin, the Speaker can ignore this if he wants to, despite 122 own MPs, because this is a wrecking amendment.
There'll be a huge stink if he chose to ignore what is a massive issue to
I'm just saying to you where we are right now.
Labour MPs could just simply vote against the bill.
Yes.
I mean, if the amendment's not selected, this is actually a way of delaying the bill. Yeah, as Chris says, effectively it kills it. But what it does do is give the government time to actually look again at their proposals.
Yes.
That's the point of it. If you leave it as it stands, those 120 Labour MPs might decide, I won't worry about my career too much, I'll stick to my principles and vote against it.
That's going to happen. You'd be even Santa as well. I mean, on a serious point, this is the government in total disarray. They're in total disarray, and we might never get a blooming debate on it, Claire.
Well, I think that's what most people want. And when you've got the pressure of 122 MPs who have signed an amendment, the Speaker is going to be under enormous pressure to look at the amendments that he's selecting. So that conference on Tuesday morning will probably be quite feisty with deciding what they're going to do with it. And I should imagine that there'll be a lot of lobbying going on. And I think people do need the voices to be heard. And if you've got 122, that is not a small amount. This is not 5 people that have signed an amendment. It's enormous. And
it's the entire Tory party, is how big it is. It's the entire...
Well, thank you for that.
That's just so we're clear what it is. It's the entire Tory party.
It absolutely is.
But it does put the Conservatives and indeed Reform in a bit of a quandary here, because they vote this down, as in if they say, if they basically agree with the Labour rebels, then where does it put their position? Because they
don't.
But they surely want to clamp down on benefits, so they think it's totally out of control. So
they'll try and work out what is actually best to wrong foot Labour. I mean, they would be playing political games.
You just said they put their principles first, and they won't do their politics.
I was talking about the Labour MPs.
Oh, I see.
So what Reform and the Tories could do is simply abstain and let the whole mess actually play out with the Labour Party.
Yeah. There are clues here what the rebels want. I've got the amendments here, the Wrecking Amendment. There are clues in here, for example, there's a review into PIP being run by the businessman Sir Charlie Mayfield. That report's in the autumn. There's an OBR assessment and want to score the cost of this. That's due back in the autumn. Simply kicking down the road saying we'll come back to this when we have those 2 reviews back, that is a logical way to do it. But looking at those remarks earlier from Sir Keir Starmer, he said, I can read the room, his noise is off, I've been here before. He's talking like he's being attacked by the left. But look at the names, 13 members, 13 select committee chairs. I mean, Dame Meg Hillier, it's not the left. This is the centrist part of the Tory part, of the Labour Party.
Nigel, isn't the point here, the Labour Party make out they're the party of the working person? They seem to be the party of the people who don't want to work. No, the benefits bill is £100 billion a year.
Not yet.
It has to be controlled.
It was going to 100 billion, which they've got to bring down. At the moment, it's about 70 billion. It will go up to 100 billion by the end of the decade. That's right.
Well, that's this Parliament's term.
So it must be brought down, and I agree with that. The reason for the rebellion is the government are just disguising this as welfare reform when actually it's a cost-cutting exercise. Yeah. What needs to be done is a proper look at welfare reform. Find out who can work, who can't work. At the moment that they're boasting about helping people with a billion quid get into work.
Final 30 seconds to you, Claire.
And I think this is where Kemi Badenoch is actually playing quite a blinding game, because she has said, we will support you, Keir Starmer, we will support you in your benefits bill. However, you're not going far enough. And I think that most people who are working in this country will look at the benefits bill and say, why am I going out working on construction sites, in retail, in hospitality, and people are sitting there doing absolutely nothing?
They've got to save £5 billion. That is the point of this. It's difficult, but they've got to do it.
Today, an extra £75 billion. They're going to have to do a lot more saving of £5 billion to meet all of these targets.
Well, this shows the markets they are keen on cutting. We are facing a problem with this government if they can't.
We've got to move on. Thank you very much, Chris, Claire, and Nigel. Excellent stuff. Thank you. Now, a Rotherham grooming gang abuser has been denied parole after a tortuous wait for his victim. GBNews can reveal. Ashka Bostan was jailed for rape in 2018, but has been up for parole earlier this year. We can now speak with GBNews reporter Charlie Peters, Freshman's Trick Award presenter of the year. Charlie Peters, another incredible story. Tell us more.
Well, good afternoon, Martin. Yes, Ashgar Bostan, he was released from prison earlier this year and, he was put back in prison earlier this year. He'd been released in 2022, having served half that sentence, but was recalled in January because a friend of one of his victims, Elizabeth, not her real name, had seen him in a part of South Yorkshire that breached his licence conditions. So she was left terrified when he was granted parole in August 2022. And having been recalled back to prison in January, he was put back into a Category B prison, but his parole opportunity returned earlier this year. And we can reveal exclusively this afternoon that that parole decision has been denied. He now is unlikely to be released from prison until February 2027, Martin. And this is a man who attacked and raped a 14 or 15-year-old girl in the mid-2000s. Now, Elizabeth, again, who we are giving the protection of anonymity granted to her for life, had to wait well over a decade to get justice because an investigation wasn't launched until 2015 when the National Crime Agency came into Rotherham and launched their Operation Stovewood, which found over 1,500 victims in that town. Well, Ashgar Bostan, as you've heard, did go to prison in 2018, a 9-year sentence for those attacks. 9 years. Every time I say that sentence, I think it surprises some of our audience. It certainly surprises me, Martin, but especially when he was released from prison after just serving half that sentence. But he will now serve that full sentence, it's expected, with a parole decision being denied. He also, as I understand, won't be released into an open prison for the remainder of that sentence. So a grooming gang perpetrator, one of the very few who is set to receive and be forced to serve his full prison sentence.
And that's in no small way due to the reporting you've been putting on, Elizabeth. I know you've spoken with many times over these months representing her and fighting for survivors. Charlie Peters, that is why you deserve to be Presenter of the Year. Charlie Peters, pleasure to have you on the show as ever. Now, coming up next, with over 10,000 foreigners clogging up British jails, the government is looking to deport foreign offenders after serving only 30% of their sentences. But will this work? Ask a human rights lawyer next. You can probably guess the answer. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:25 with me, Martin Daubney, on an action-packed day here on GB News. Now, foreign prisoners are to be deported after serving just a fraction of their jail sentences in an effort to save the taxpayer millions of pounds. Now, the Labour government are allegedly bringing forward legislation that will allow overseas offenders to be removed after serving 30% of their sentence, down from the current 50%. But can they pull this off, or once again will the lawyers be licking their lips to derail it? Well, let's speak to one of them now. That's the human rights lawyer, great friend of the show, David Hay. David, welcome to the show, looking dapper as ever. Look, of course they need to do something about this. It's a huge problem. Around about 10,000 foreign nationals languishing in British jails, and we're releasing criminals, murder and burglars and rapists early to make way. But will this plan work?
Good afternoon, Martin. I think, well, the first thing, is it actually a good idea? Because what type of message are we sending? If we have foreign criminals and they're convicted, then yes, they should be deported. Absolutely. But should we make it so that they're only serving 30%, maybe even the report says 10% potentially of their sentence? What message is that sending to criminals around the world? If you ask me, it's sending a message to criminals around the world, come and base yourself in Britain. You'll only do 10 to 30% of a sentence. And even if you get deported, you can get back in on a boat. I mean, that's the message I see to some of the very despicable people around the world that would exploit that. So absolutely, let's deport the criminals and get that done quickly once their sentence is finished. But should we be giving them a get-out-of-jail-free card? I'm not quite sure.
So, David, hey, I hadn't even thought about that. You're exactly right. Early release, straight back by a tortuous route to Calais on the next dinghy to Britain, potentially. There's something else as well, isn't there? And that is a lot of these foreign criminals we can't even return because we don't have returns agreements with countries like Afghanistan, who are 22 times more likely to be sex offenders than Brits, and Iraqis and Iranians. We can't send those people back anyway, so they're off radar. And we've seen even recently with countries where we do have returns deals, like Pakistan, they won't even take back gang rapists because they say we'll only do that if we open an airport route. David, I can see this being fraught with all kinds of complications.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, that's another of the things as well. And, I've seen this many times before. When a prisoner is about to be deported, the Home Office either deliberately releases them or accidentally releases them pending deportation, expecting them to turn up to be deported. Of course, many don't do that. I wonder why. So you're going to have people serving less of their sentence, being allowed into the community, not turning up for deportation. So I think it's fraught with problems and it's not really being thought through. I mean, it sounds nice the way if they report it properly, let's deport foreign criminals. But the reality, particularly, when you look at the victims of crime in this country, if they see someone they're a victim, someone's done terrible things to them, and someone's effectively getting off scot-free and then can come back in here quite easily, that isn't the purpose of prison.
And David, that's before we even talk about the ECHR and the rights to a family life, no doubt. Some chicken nuggets for home interview or some other idiotic, piece of minutiae. And once again, the lawyers will step in and deny British law coming into effect anyway.
100%. I mean, this will get stuck in the court. So when we go through this process, they've already served, let's say, 30% of their sentence. And then if the foreign criminal then tries to stop being deported, you could end up with people serving only 30% and being allowed to stay. And that is, again, not the purpose of prison. So I think that the Labour Party on this needs to go back to the drawing board, because I don't think this is going to achieve what they're. I mean, if they're aiming to reduce the numbers in prison, yes, the easy answer, let people go. But that's not the purpose of prison.
Superb stuff. As ever, it's a pleasure to have your expertise and your company. Thank you very much. Human rights lawyer David Hay, great friend of the show. Thank you. Get back to the studio. Bit of reaction. Nigel Nelson. Isn't that the point? This is a great idea on paper, but in practice, it's a paper tiger.
Well, no, because, I mean, the one thing that's going to happen is they go back to prison. We're not freeing people. We have an agreement through the Council of Europe, nothing to do with the EU, the Council of Europe, with 71 countries where we can send people back.
So why don't we do that already?
We do.
Why can't we deport
but we do them at a later stage in their sentence. So the point here is...
Well, we can't deport Pakistani rapists, grooming gang rapists at the moment. Why don't we take them back?
There are certain places where we can't do it. So we also have bilateral agreements with various countries, Albania, Ghana...
Albanians make up the majority of foreign prisoners in Britain. We can't send them back either.
We can, because we do have an agreement with Albania. Well, we are. I mean, plane loads of Albanians have been sent home.
How many were on those planes?
Well, I mean...
It was about 40 people.
Well, even 40 people is...
We've got 10,000, mate.
Yeah, we've got 10,000 foreign prisoners in. They're not all Albanians, even though an awful lot of them are. So there's various agreements. Some of them require the prisoner's consent to actually go back. So if they're going back to Iraq or India or the Philippines, they need the consent of the prisoner. But the point is, it's not just sort of freeing them after a third of their sentence. It is trying to make them serve their sentence in their own country.
And you think that's actually going to happen?
Well, I mean...
Because it hasn't happened so far.
That is entirely up to the country they go to, exactly how they handle it. Yeah. Point here is that our prisons are full. The more people we can get out of them, the more people then, real criminals, we can put into them.
On that, we can both agree. But I just think, that you heard there the human rights lawyer himself, who knows the system inside out, who knows every trick in the book, that's as sure as night follows day will be played, and it just feels like another well-meaning calming notion that's meant to pacify the red wall. When it comes down to it, I think we'll have absolutely no teeth. I could be wrong. Nigel Nelson, thank you very, very much for your expertise as ever. Now, loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including another huge embarrassment for the Labour Party. The government's own Borders and Immigration Chief has said we cannot end asylum hotels after all, despite that being a pledge of this government. But first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon. The headlines just after 4:30. Donald Trump has claimed credit for NATO's new defence spending deal as the summit enters its final hours. He says his push for higher contributions has led to an extra $700 billion pledged across the alliance.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
Angela Rayner has confirmed that a vote on the welfare bill will go ahead. Standing in for the Prime Minister at PMQs today, she made it clear that Labour won't abandon millions trapped in a failing system. Thousands of Eurostar passengers are suffering severe delays and cancellations after 2 track fatalities and cable theft. Travellers are urged to cancel or postpone their trips. And well, the King had a royal first today, shaking hands with a gorilla and adopting a patch of the Pacific Ocean at a Nature Finance Summit. Life-sized animal puppets roamed Lancaster House, giving a whole new meaning to hands-on diplomacy. Who said saving the planet has to be boring? Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a rather cloudy evening, some outbreaks of rain, these possibly turning thundery across the southeast, but for all it is set to be a warm, muggy and rather uncomfortable night. But it's really this feature towards the Bay of Biscay pushing its way towards the south and southeast that we do need to keep our eye on. A chance we could see some quite heavy showers pushing their way northwards, moving into parts of Kent and East Anglia through the course of the night, and these potentially turning quite thundery and possibly quite blustery through the course of the evening, eventually clearing away towards dawn. But even in the west, some heavy outbreaks of rain pushing through here, particularly across western parts of Scotland. But for all, it is set to be warm, muggy, quite uncomfortable. Many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to high teens. So yes, it is set to be a rather wet start, particularly across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall. Still some heavy showers starting to clear their way through East Anglia, and similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, plenty of low cloud around and some outbreaks of rain. And Western Scotland in particular, some quite heavy, possibly blustery outbreaks here too. And through the course of the morning, it's likely many areas will see some outbreaks of rain. But this feature slowly pushing its way eastwards, so across the west, it will start to brighten up from around mid-morning. Plenty of sunny spells by around midday across Northern Ireland, and for all as we head into the afternoon, turning much brighter, more sunshine and feeling a lot fresher too. It's not going to feel quite as muggy, and temperatures on the whole are going to be a degree or two down, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, any remnants of rain across eastern areas soon clearing away. There are still going to be some showers, and then we'll eventually see a return of the cloud and rain push its way back through into the west later Thursday evening. And temperatures are on the up once again. It's likely we'll see another heat wave as we head through the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A82 northbound at Tyndrum, a collision limits movement. Approach cautiously. In Gateshead, the A1 southbound at the A184 has one lane closed due to an incident. The A4060 northbound in Pentrabach is closed for maintenance from 7 this evening to 1 tomorrow morning. In Staffordshire, the A50 eastbound between the A518 faces 30-minute delays. The A14 eastbound in Suffolk between Junction 38 Newmarket East and Junction 40 has delays. And on the trains, there is cross-country disruption at Durham and Gatwick Express delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:36. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway. And your chance to win £54,321. That's right, 54321. Tax-free cash. And it could all be yours. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
We're here at Down Hall in Essex to enjoy the finer things in life. And it's your chance to win £54,321 in cash. It's like having an extra £1,000 in your bank account each week for a whole year, which means that you'd be able to indulge in treats whenever you wanted to. That extra cash each week could send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing this year to enable you to sit back, relax and do nothing. Make sure you don't miss out on our biggest cash giveaway to date.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now then, the government's pledge to end the use of hotels for asylum seekers by 2029 has been dismissed as unrealistic, and that's by the UK's very own borders watchdog. Now, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves reiterated at the spending review 2 weeks ago that the government's commitment to end asylum hotels would save the government £1 billion a year. However, David Bolt, who's the Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, told senior MPs yesterday that the growing backlog of cases and appeals could undermine the government's targets. Another day where the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. And let's join now the former director of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith. Tony, welcome to the show. So here we are again. It's Groundhog Day. David Bolt, the Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, said we can't end the use of asylum hotels because we don't have enough houses, and we can't smash the gangs because it's simply too lucrative. Tony Smith, you and I could have told them this ages ago. Finally, reality bites.
Yeah, it's important to recognise that David, of course, he is the independent chief inspector, or auditor, if you like, of the Border Force, of the Home Office immigration functions. And so he is allowed, actually, Martin, to come out and say what he thinks. And I think he's come out and said exactly what you and I have been saying for a while, really. It is unrealistic to be able to expect us to be able to wipe out the backlog of people in hotels by, 2029. And equally, smashing the gangs alone is not going to stop the boats, is it? We've had record number, over 108,000 asylum applications over the last year. They've not really made any dent in the numbers of hotels. And we had an NAO report, didn't we, just last month, which said that actually we're going to end up spending 3 times more than we thought we would in 2019 on asylum hotels, because we simply haven't got anywhere to put the migrants, Martin. Where are they going to go? They can't really grant their way out of this, because if they try and grant their way out of this and let everybody stay, well, they've still got to live somewhere. And that will simply shift the cost of housing them from the Home Office budget onto local authorities who are already struggling, I think, many of them on their own, to find housing for their own indigenous communities, which in turn, as we know, leads to community unrest and housing of multiple occupancy. So, I mean, it's all very well to come out and say these targets, but I think they really need to say, well, how are they going to deliver them? And I think what David is challenging is, well, I don't actually see any evidence about how you're going to do this.
You're exactly right. If you move this problem around the country into a housing accommodation unit near you, on a street near you, I think the people won't stand for it anymore, Tony Smith. It's simply too late. The genie is out of the bottle. Back to the second point about it's simply too lucrative to smash the gangs, because it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You smash one gang, another one pops up. We can't win the war on drugs. We can't win, I put it to you, the war on people smuggling until we have a proper deterrent and a threat of deportation.
Yeah, crime does pay. Martin, and in this area it pays very, very well, actually very handsomely, to human smugglers who are beyond the reach of us. I'm afraid they are trying to take new powers under the new border security bill to give us more authorities. But my experience, you need the cooperation of the countries there. Most of these are operating overseas, not in the UK. It'd probably make it easier to catch people who are operating in the UK. But outside of that, we know from the French beaches, we're not allowed to send officers over there. They won't let us. It's their beach, it's their land, and it's the same with investigations. We may have some collaborative agreements with some European countries, but smashing the gangs on its own is not going to be working. We've been trying to do that for a long time, Martin. Believe me, the NCA, Border Force, we've been on this for a long, long time. We've been trying to do that. We know it doesn't work. The only thing that really works, which is the Australian model of stopping the boats, was as you say, a removals deterrent. And we had that, didn't we, with Rwanda? I mean, we were there or thereabouts with Rwanda. And I think the abolition of the Rwanda plan for what were essentially politically ideological reasons rather than any common sense reasons, to just scrap it without giving it an opportunity to run. We'll never know now if that would have had but I thought that was a very bold attempt to say, no, you can't come in here, you can't claim asylum, we're not having you. You wouldn't have to put people in hotels, you wouldn't put them in houses, they wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't have to detain them, they'd be in Rwanda. And I think once that message got out, maybe, just maybe, that might have a very significant impact. I think scrapping that has been one of the biggest political errors of our time.
Tony Smith, very quickly, I want to ask you a personal question. Could you be tempted out of retirement to get back into controlling borders? Because every time you come on, you speak so much common sense.
Martin, I love those guys. I'm one of them. And I did 40 years in there. And I think there is huge frustration in the department. Ultimately, though, would I do any better to persuade politicians about the right way forward than you or any other journalist or any other consultant or expert?
What if the politicians changed?
Well, I mean, yes, I do think there are things that could be done, but ultimately, I did think that the plan under the Illegal Migration Act, it was ill thought through. We didn't have the Safety of Rwanda Act inside. Whole things we could talk about all afternoon about why they didn't do that right, but they were on the right lines, and I certainly very happy to help them with that. I'd be very happy to help this government with that, but this government have to be very, very clear, Martin, about what they want to do and how they want to go about it. And by scrapping the Rwanda plan, they have basically said we will admit everybody who arrives on our shores into the UK asylum system, even though we have a legal framework that enables us not to do that. Tony, and that to me is wrong. And unless they change their minds on that, then I'm afraid I can't help them any more than you can.
Tony Smith, we've got to leave you there, but I sense there you're ready to pull your tracksuit off and charge off the bench and back onto the field of play. Let's wait and see if that happens in the future. Tony Smith, always a pleasure to have your company. Back to studio, Nigel Nelson. Let's face it, when you make promises like we will stop the boats, we will smash the gangs, we will end asylum hotels, they're measurable, you can't hide from them, and you're destined to fail. This feels like a failure in the waiting by the Labour Party.
Yeah, I think that all those things you've mentioned are failures. Stopping the boats was never going to happen. Certainly, that smashing the gangs, that'll help. You've got 80 investigations going on at the moment on smuggling gangs. These are mitigations.
80 more gangs will just pop up when you replace.
Well, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. That they're mitigations. They're not a solution in themselves. But I mean, Tony made several points there about the Illegal Migration Act that has mostly been repealed by Labour, that was brought in by the Tories. That made people inadmissible if they crossed the Channel by boat. It made the problem worse because they couldn't leave, but they couldn't stay either. So what you need is something in between that, so people are inadmissible, but they end up in a processing centre somewhere else, whereby they don't have to be on British soil to claim asylum.
Or we could just jail them if they come to the country illegally, offshore, like Australia did.
Well, I mean, you could
stop namby-pambying about.
Well, if you had a processing centre offshore and you made them inadmissible, this is taking the Tory Act, then what that would mean is they could people would go there for asylum. You find me a country that wants to have 40,000 people traipsing through it to claim asylum in Britain.
If we can find 50 billion quid for defence, perhaps we can find a few billion to do that precise deal. That's a conversation for another time. Nigel Nelson, excellent as ever. Now, if we can search some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of heat at the moment across the Mediterranean. Most places sunny, and the peak of the heat over the next few days will be through central parts of the Mediterranean. A little cooler for the time being through Spain, Portugal, Canaries as well, where it's, well, typically breezy. And it's also breezy for the Balearics, but we've got this plume of heat now through central parts of Europe. Certainly some unusually high temperatures to Italy and to Croatia, and then later on across parts of Greece. Mid to high 30s widely.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
My eye this morning, because I say it all the time. You can't say gents at work. You're deemed to be not inclusive.
It's not inclusive. This comes from a tribunal which took place where a woman took umbrage at one of her bosses using the term in an email, dear gents. Well, you can't use the word gent. I mean, I wonder what it's like when you go to the gents now, whether you have to say going to the non-gender specific lavatories. It's a phrase. It shows that you're a bit old, they say, using the word gents. Now, I mean, I don't regard myself as old, although some may disagree with that.
This caught my eye as well, because one of your lovely presenters, who's on, I believe, at 6 o'clock, Michelle Dewberry, she very often says, you know, thank you, gents. I don't think she's polite. I don't think she's going to be changing. But when you look into this story, there is a little bit more to this than meets the eye, because this email was sent round by management in this insurance company, and one of the ladies who was on a list to be made redundant, along with men, used that email as evidence as to why there was discrimination going on. So there was a little bit more to this, and what the court said was that, you know, this was clumsy language, but this was managerial incompetence. And I don't think we should in any way take that as meaning it's got any wider.
So hang on, the court even said it's clumsy language?
The court said it was clumsy language. I mean, they shouldn't be using that language, but what I'm saying is I don't think this means that we have to all change our behaviour because of this one.
But what next, Anna?
Decision.
I've noticed a trend among, particularly in younger people, to call people guys, even women.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Our Homeland Security Editor Mark White has been given exclusive access to the Metropolitan Police's elite flying squad as officers arrested 10 gang members believed responsible for stealing hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of smartphones.
We're on board with these officers from South East London as they prepare to rendezvous with the team from the Met's flying squad. Their target, an organised crime group suspected of involvement in a series of violent robberies. The gang's believed to have struck mobile phone shops in more than a dozen different locations, stuffing holdalls full of high-value smartphones in each raid. This is rare access. The flying squad is the Met's elite robbery and kidnap unit, dealing with some of the country's most hardened criminals.
Please open the door, it's going in!
Inside are the two suspects they're looking for.
We'll come down and speak to him just 2 seconds, all right? You're under arrest for mobile phone shops between March and June 2025.
As a drug sniffer dog arrives to help search the property, other officers find what they think is a small packet of drugs thrown from a bedroom window.
It's crack cocaine.
Well, it's just after 6 a.m. and the two suspects at this address have had a rather rude awakening. Raids are also happening at another dozen addresses around this area.
Unarmed assets driving around trying to help over.
The UK's major cities have seen an epidemic of phone thefts. In London alone, 80,000 smartphones were stolen last year. Half of all street robberies are linked to mobile phones, netting the thieves up to £400 for each device. Now, organised crime groups, like the one targeted by the flying squad, are stealing in bulk and making huge profits. These are expensive pieces of equipment they're stealing.
Absolutely. One iPhone can cost in the region of £1,200. In some incidents, they've stolen up to 72 handsets at a time. So it's really, really lucrative.
So we're talking £100,000 a raid?
Yes, absolutely.
Police! A major drive by the Metropolitan Police has seen a 15% drop in phone thefts this year. The Scotland Yard commander, tasked with reducing phone robberies, believes the phone companies can also help in that effort.
About 3/4 of those phones that leave the UK connect to networks and cloud services overseas. So essentially they're being reused as a second-hand phone in a foreign market. We think that phone companies could work more closely together to block access to cloud services for those devices. So that phone is still a phone in that foreign country, but it can't connect to cloud services and therefore can't operate as a smartphone.
The smarter and more expensive the device, the more attractive they become to the criminals trying to cash in on this highly lucrative trade. But today, at least, the flying squad believe they've dealt a major blow to one organised crime group in the battle against the phone thieves. Mark White, GB News, South East London.
You've got to say an excellent report there from Mark White. Phone theft is a cancer, especially on the streets out here in London. It just happens all the time. And I'll tell you what, if Mark White came through my door, I'd probably be straight out the window as well. Now, stick with us, because coming up next, we've got some astonishing figures. 45,000 asylum seekers simply gone missing, gone walkies, and close links, of course, to organised crime in the black economy. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But first, here's your wonderful weather with Honor.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a rather cloudy evening, some outbreaks of rain, these possibly turning thundery across the southeast, but for all it is set to be a warm, muggy and rather uncomfortable night. But it's really this feature towards the Bay of Biscay pushing its way towards the south and southeast that we do need to keep our eye on. A chance we could see some quite heavy showers pushing their way northwards, moving into parts of Kent and East Anglia through the course of the night, and these potentially turning quite thundery and possibly quite blustery through the course of the evening, eventually clearing away towards dawn. But even in the west, some heavy outbreaks of rain pushing through here, particularly across western parts of Scotland. But for all, it is set to be warm, muggy, quite uncomfortable. Many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to high teens. So yes, it is set to be a rather wet start, particularly across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall. Still some heavy showers starting to clear their way through East Anglia, and similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, plenty of low cloud around and some outbreaks of rain. And Western Scotland in particular, some quite heavy, possibly blustery outbreaks here too. And through the course of the morning, it's likely many areas will see some outbreaks of rain. But this feature slowly pushing its way eastwards, so across the west, it will start to brighten up from around mid-morning. plenty of sunny spells by around midday across Northern Ireland, and for all as we head into the afternoon. Turning much brighter, more sunshine and feeling a lot fresher too. It's not going to feel quite as muggy, and temperatures on the whole are going to be a degree or two down, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, any remnants of rain across eastern areas soon clearing away. There are still going to be some showers, and then we'll eventually see a return of the cloud and rain push its way back through into the west later Thursday evening. And temperatures are on the up once again. It's likely we'll see another heat wave as we head through the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A38 northbound at Tindrum is restricted due to an incident. Exercise caution. Resurfacing on the A4060 northbound in Pentrabach starts at 7 tonight. Expect a 10-minute delay on the A66 eastbound in Cumbria due to congestion. A 30-minute delay is reported on the A50 eastbound in Staffordshire due to congestion. One lane on the M11 southbound in Essex is closed due to an incident. And on the trains, disruption is reported on cross-country at Durham and the Gatwick Express between Redhill and Gatwick Airport. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Jupiter. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. on this action-packed day in politics. And welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
And earlier today, US President Donald Trump has praised NATO allies for their commitments to increase defence spending, and he promised to come to their defence in a speech a short moment ago. We'll have full reactions to this astonishing speech throughout the show. And the Labour Party seems to be hurtling towards a civil war as over 130 of their own MPs look set to vote against Keir Starmer's benefits cuts next Tuesday. With his authority in tatters, could his leadership be challenged, and might we see an early general election? And with over 10,000 foreigners clogging up British jails, the government is looking to deport foreign offenders after serving only 30% of their sentences. But there's a problem. I'll be joined by a human rights lawyer who'll explain why woke lawyers will be doing all they can to derail these laudable plans. And also coming up on today's show,
we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament.
Yet another huge embarrassment for the Labour Party. The government's own Borders and Immigration Chief, the Independent Chief, has said we cannot end asylum hotels nor smash the gangs. Why not? Well, we simply don't have enough houses and people smuggling is too lucrative. Once again, have the lunatics taken over the asylum system? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show, it's a pleasure to have your company. Also in this hour, GB News exclusive from Rob Bates at the Centre for Migration Control. Incredible figures showing 45,000 asylum seekers have simply disappeared. They simply refused to engage with the authorities. They disappeared into the black economy and they just vanished into thin air. We'll have a full breakdown of where these individuals are coming from, who they are, and what we think they're doing. Clearly, this is fueling the black market, and with Albanians making up the big tranche of them, you can probably guess what they might be getting involved in, bearing in mind that Albanians now seem to be running most of the drug business in the UK, certainly in London and the South East. 45,000 simply gone walkabout, and we cannot seem to do anything about it. Get in touch the usual way, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do that. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good evening. The top story tonight at 5. US President Donald Trump is claiming credit for NATO's new defence spending deal as the summit has entered its final hours. Speaking at a news conference earlier, he said his push for higher contributions since 2017 has led to an extra $700 billion in defence spending across the alliance.
We live in a very volatile world, and today is about the unity of NATO, showing that strength. We're bigger than we were before, we're stronger than we were before. There's a historic commitment in relation to spending. And for me, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, it's important that we play an integral part, because the safety and security of our citizens in the UK is my first duty as Prime Minister. I take that extremely seriously.
That, of course, there is the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, not Donald Trump. We'll get that clip to you later this hour. But Donald Trump's comments come after NATO members agreed to increase their spending on defence to 5% of GDP by 2035. That is a major jump from the current 2% target. And the summit has also seen a flurry of pledges, including from Sir Keir Starmer, who we just heard from, saying that the UK will buy 12 nuclear-capable jets and send hundreds more missiles to Ukraine, funded by frozen Russian assets. A man has been found guilty of murdering 14-year-old schoolboy Daniel Angerin during a samurai sword rampage in north-east London. A jury today at the Old Bailey also convicted the 37-year-old of 3 counts of attempted murder, wounding with intent, aggravated burglary and possessing a bladed article. He was cleared of 1 attempted murder charge, but found guilty of the lesser offence of causing grievous bodily harm. The attacks happened during a 20-minute spree in Hainault last April, in which Monzo targeted members of the public and police officers. Sir Keir Starmer has defended his leadership as Labour is pushing ahead with a key welfare reform vote despite a major rebellion from his own MPs. More than 120 Labour MPs have backed an amendment to scrap the bill, which would tighten access to disability benefits and reshape support for under-22s. Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister, told MPs the vote will go ahead on Tuesday, while Conservative stand-in Sir Mel Stride warned that Labour risks defeat without cross-party backing. Well, let's take a listen now to what Mel Stride had to say earlier today.
A single national security strategy, and we will bring it to this House Because, Mr Speaker...
Well, it appears we don't have that clip of Mel Stride, but I can bring you news on the situation regarding the Eurostar, where passengers are now facing yet more delays, severe disruption after cable theft and 2 separate fatalities on the line in northern France. Around 600 metres of copper cable was stolen, forcing trains to be rerouted and causing major delays between London, Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam. Eurostar says the line has now reopened and no further cancellations are expected today, but delays will continue into the evening. And the King shook hands with a gorilla. Yes, you heard that right, and adopted a patch of Pacific Ocean. Not your average royal engagement. Take a listen. Well, at that summit on nature finance, His Majesty was made a careholder of 1 square kilometre of marine paradise, gifted by the island of Niue. He joked, quote, "I have green fingers," after being shown a tree he planted 35 years ago, now towering tall. And yes, there were even life-sized animal puppets roaming Lancaster House because, well, who said saving the planet has to be boring? Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
Thank you, Sam. Now to today's top story. The government have confirmed that a vote on their highly anticipated welfare bill will now take place next Tuesday. Angela Rayner, the Deputy PM, standing in once again for 128 Sir Keir Starmer at PMQs, confirmed the news amid of a mega rebellion of at least 120 Labour MPs that could vote against the government. Well, I'm joined in the studio by a laughing boy, GBNews editor Chris Hope, and the Labour MP for North Durham, Luke Akehurst. Gentlemen, welcome to...
You can't call her the one-to-way Prime Minister.
26th foreign... It's like 27th.
He's doing his bit for the country.
26th foreign trip. All I'm saying is there's domestic politics. That's the point. It's all kicking off in Parliament and there could be a major rebellion next Tuesday. What's the latest?
Well, the latest, but our guest Luke Akehurst may have better. We think there are 122 MPs have signed this reasoned amendment, a wrecking amendment, to stop this bill to cut benefits bill by £5 billion a year next Tuesday. Yes, we heard Angela Rayner confirm in Deputy PMQs that will go ahead. What we don't know is whether the Speaker will select the amendment. Now, before you throw your toys out your pram, Martin Daubney, like last time, what that means is the Speaker normally must choose an opposition amendment and one other. And he may not want to choose this wrecking amendment. And then that begs the question, will the 122 rebels vote against the government and risk them holding the whip in the party?
Well, let's now get to Luke Akehurst for your take on that. What's your position on this bill? How will you be voting, if you don't mind me asking, sir?
I'm going to be supporting the government because I'm a Labour MP, so I think I should vote with a Labour government. But more importantly, I think this is the right policy to pursue, that we've got this massive crisis. We're the only country in Europe where the number of people out of work and claiming sickness benefits has just grown and grown and grown since COVID, and that's not fiscally sustainable, it's not economically sustainable. It's one of the things that's driving immigration as well, and it isn't right for those people. They're not having the best life that they could if they're sat at home on a very low income from benefits when they could be in work, and we need to help them to get into work and drive that benefits bill down. Then we could spend the money on all kinds of other useful things, spend it on the NHS or the defence that we need for the Russian threat.
Luke Akehurst, a lot of people listening to this show would no doubt agree with that. In fact, they think we should go further. We're heading towards £100 billion a year benefits nightmare. We're the sick man of Europe. We simply have people who are paid to not work. And how come, if this is so sensible, 120 plus however many of your colleagues don't agree? And it seems to a lot of people watching this show that the party that's meant to represent the working people seems to be the party representing the work-shy people.
OK, well, I think some of it is, Labour's always a compassionate party, so people are torn about anything that might make life more difficult for people that are disabled. I'm actually disabled myself and had help from the Access to Work scheme to get back into work when I was a wheelchair user. So I've experienced that, getting back into the workplace with disability, and that makes me quite passionate about what disabled people can do rather than the need to kind of survive on handouts. So I'm coming at it from a different viewpoint, but I also think the impact of this has been exaggerated, and the idea of like actually voting against the government is disproportionate to what's being proposed, which isn't actually to cut the amount that's spent on benefit, it's to reduce the increase to a manageable level, to about an 8 billion increase by the end of this Parliament. There'll still be 750,000 more people on benefits. All that this does is change the criteria so the 10% of people on PIP who are least disabled or least sick wouldn't be eligible anymore, and instead lots of money would be spent on trying to help them to get back into productive jobs.
OK, Chris. And yet the amendment signed by 122 of your colleagues says here, doesn't it, that 250,000 people will be pushed into poverty as a result of what your government's doing, including 50,000 children.
Yeah, only if the £1 billion that we're putting into helping people to get back into work has no impact whatsoever. Yes, if you had this reduction and didn't get PIP and you stayed at home on universal credit, then you would be less well off. But if you take advantage of the help that the government's going to be offering to help people back into jobs, you could be a lot better off and certainly have a better life that would be better for your mental health and for your family and everything else.
Well, Luke, I think most people watching the show will say work is good for you. Work should pay. Work is the lifeblood of the nation, and languishing on benefits at taxpayers' expense is simply bleeding the country dry. But to another point, is this major trouble brewing for the Prime Minister? Is this a moment where they're thinking the opinion polls are disastrous, the popularity of the Prime Minister is disastrous, I might as well vote against them. I might as well vote with my conscience. I might as well vote for my constituents. I might as well vote in a way that puts me apart from the government, because actually I'm thinking about the next election and surviving, and being a Labour MP at the moment is dangerous.
I think if we were 10% ahead, then perhaps people would be thinking more strategically. But actually, history shows that you can rebel as much as you like. People primarily vote on party lines. No one is actually saved in their constituency from having voted against their own government. And actually, what the risk is that this just causes greater political instability. I actually think once we get to Tuesday and people are confronted with the real decision, it'll be a lot fewer than the number of names. I've already spoken to a couple of people. There are good people on that list, and they who've already withdrawn their names.
Who are they?
Well, I'm not going to get into names, but you'll be able to see when the list gets shorter. But people, there are extensive conversations going on with ministers who are talking through both the consequences of this and the reality of what the changes.
So they're puffing up their chest, but they'll fold like a cheap suit when push comes to shove. I mean, what's the point of that?
What of people?
Well, what's the point in putting your name to something, saying it's totally wrong, it's unfair, it pushes people into poverty, and then they change their mind, like they change their suit jacket?
I'm not convinced that everyone understands that what they've signed, because reasoned amendment sounds like it's changing the law. Actually, the meaning in Parliament of a reasoned amendment is it kills the law and it can't proceed any further, and would be something quite massive for a government to lose its own piece of legislation at second reading. So I think when people understand the reality of it, they may back away.
In the week of your, the celebration of your anniversary of your landslide last time, I think it'd be extraordinary if that happened. I mean, and also, I'm not even sure you can bring it back in before the next King's speech. I think it kills any kind of benefit reform until the next time.
Which then causes, a massive problem, because Rachel Reeves has to find £5 billion either from tax increases or maybe take it off the NHS or something. I don't think anyone has really thought. I don't think people who are gung-ho signing this have thought about the wider consequences or the way it would make us look internationally, or indeed to the public, want us to tackle these big fundamental problems that we've got in our economy.
OK, Luke Akers, we've just had an opinion poll land on us. Perhaps we can move on to that now. I think it's just coming. It's an electoral calculus did this. I think, was it with More in Common? Came out earlier on today, and it's pretty grim reading, I have to say, for the Labour Party. We can see on our screens now, it predicts 377 seats for Reform. Labour Party sliding to 118 seats there. Liberal Democrats losing a few down to 69. The Tories being driven to near extinction on 29 seats. I think we have an electoral map. You can see there the country pretty much turning turquoise from the tip.
And big names losing their seats.
And big names...
Well, small names like me as well. But,
but there are 14 Labour ministers that would lose their seats in this circumstance, Chris Hope. Who are the big beasts that would fall?
Well, Angela Rayner, of course, who led DPM questions today, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, Ed Miliband, the Climate Change Secretary, Pat McFadden, of course, Wes Streeting on health, Jonathan Reynolds, business, Liz Kendall, yes, working pensions, John Healey, Hi Alexander, Hilary Benn, Bridget Phillipson, education, Lisa Nandy, Lucy Powell, Leader of the Commons. That's extraordinary. I think you're referring then to a different poll out today.
Yes.
From More in Common. And that was interesting because that said if Jeremy Corbyn were to start his own party, he's not involved in the party, but of course, were he to, and to fight for left-wing issues...
Split the vote even further.
10% of the support goes to him.
But you'd take a lot of votes off the Green Party. They would be the main victim.
They're down 4
Yeah.
on this calculation, and Labour down 3. You split the both.
OK, Luke, it's a long way till the general election, but the momentum, the direction of travel seems to be pretty morbid, pretty bad for the Labour Party. Of course, you're going to have faith it can be turned around, but...
So, I mean, I don't need seat predictions or opinion polls to tell me that, because I just lost almost all of the councillors in my North Durham constituency to Reform, and Reform's now running the council there. So I've got real election results that tell me how people are thinking. And,
so how do you turn it around, Luke? How do you turn it around?
Listening to them, and we've started to do that with things like the winter fuel change and toughened up position on immigration, even at a local level. Actually, the immigration the kind of detail is better, because the Home Office just announced no more HMOs, housing and multiple occupation, for asylum seekers in the whole of County Durham.
I think that was achieved by Reform, though, wasn't it?
I think it may have been achieved by me making representations to ministers, but because I suspect I suspect they're more interested in my opinions than Reform. I've got to talk to Reform because they're running the local council, but that meeting hasn't happened yet. But I think the important thing for Labour, whether it's backbench MPs or the government, or the ministers, is just to get on with delivering the change that the country needs. Whether that, all of the issues that the public care about, we need to deliver. And if we deliver, we've got a chance of getting re-elected. And if we don't deliver, we don't deserve to get re-elected.
OK, Luke Akers, I sincerely appreciate you coming over to see us here at GBNews. I really mean that. Thank you very, very much. The MP for North Durham, Luke Akers. Thank you. And thanks, Chris Hope, as ever. Thank you. Now, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and your chance to win £54,321, our biggest cash prize to date, and it's all tax-free. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, coming up next, a commission aimed at tackling community divisions across Britain in the aftermath of last summer's riots is holding its first meeting today, and we'll discuss just how they might be able to do this next. Was it the far right, or was it actually something completely different? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. That's me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 5:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, an independent commission aimed at tackling community divisions across Britain in the wake of last summer's riots, of course, after the Southport's triple murder. It will hold its first meeting today. Now, the cross-party body will be led by the former Tory Home Secretary, Sir Sajid Javid, with the group aiming to develop a series of evidence-based recommendations for measures to build more social cohesion across the four nations. Well, I'm joined in the studio to discuss this by the social policy analyst, great friend of the show, Dr. Rakib Hassan, by GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and GB News' political editor, Chris Hope, a triage of excellence. Chris, I'm going to start with you because I've got to say, when this came out this morning, I thought this is going to be a whitewash, it's going to be a cover-up. We were told at the time it was the far right, it was racist, it was Islamophobes. We never had any engagement with the community about why they felt so furious after those triple killings. Will this be a proper, thorough, independent inquiry, the inquiry Britain deserves?
Martin, that is the intention. So you've got the former Home Secretary, Sir Sajid Javid, you've got former Labour MP John Cuddiss, both extremely respected politicians on both Labour and the Tory party. Yes, we saw last August, and I was covering that with you for GB News all through that difficult August, when we kept saying to the government, why is it a far-right issue? It's community issues here, which the government's ignored. The PM said it, and I think that was difficult to understand for our viewers and listeners. I think here's an attempt, independent of government, to tackle that head-on. It's being funded by donors, not funded by the government, but Sir Keir Starmer and Kevin Badenoch, the Tory leader, they both support what they're doing here. They'll be going out into communities, villages, towns, using AI, using ways to record conversations, get a feeling for it. It'll report back in a year's time. But the very the charge you put to it, which is fair enough given your experience of how the powers that be have treated this issue, they are going to tackle that head on and try and say, you can't just say it's the far right. That's too simplistic. There's an element of it, no question, but there's more people just cheesed off with how they're being treated in their communities.
Well, Chris, thank you for bringing more information to the table. I consider myself slightly tempered down. Dr. Raki Wasan, I think, however, my position is echoed by millions of people across Britain who just felt it was completely out of order to call this far right at the time, and we've seen that governments have to be forced kicking and screaming to give us inquiries over things like rape gangs.
Absolutely.
So perhaps the cynicism isn't misplaced.
No, absolutely. I think that when you want to look at investigations like this, you want to find the root causes of why those terrible scenes took place last summer. And this isn't to condone the violence and the destruction of property, but we want to avoid that from taking place in the future. So I think that in terms of the investigation, I want to see, to what extent do people believe that there is genuine two-tier governance in modern Britain, for example. I think that we've made significant strides in terms of racial equality, but perhaps the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction. Some people may perceive minorities to be the beneficiaries of preferential treatment, especially when it comes to matters of law and order. I think that we have to look at the economics, social factors as well. I think that the problem surrounding the small boats emergency, I think that puts a magnificent strain on social cohesion in some of the most deprived parts of the country. And it's often justified because housing costs are lower there. That is why we should distribute asylum seekers, in my view, many being illegal migrants, to the poorest towns and parts of the country. But that can place a magnificent strain when it comes to social relations. And I think that more generally, I think there's many parts of the country, they're fundamentally left behind and they've been starved of meaningful investment for decades. So it needs to be a very wide-reaching, all-encompassing investigation. And I'm certainly encouraged by the involvement of the likes of John Cruddas, who's actually quite big in the blue Labour tendency, and that's one that I support a great deal.
Raki, may I ask you, as a Muslim man yourself, we speak often about this word Islamophobia is brandished about. Labour Party seems to be intent on strengthening the powers that may give. That could be a concern. It's not Islamophobic to question issues of, for example, the cover-up around the rape gang inquiries. It's not Islamophobic to speak out and question anything. Do you fear that part of the reason for the anger and frustration that the white working classes in particular felt last summer started years ago? And it started because a lot of those people feel like they've been treated as second-class citizens in their own country for too long.
No, I think that the argument this was some kind of flash in the pan, that's not correct at all in my view. I think that this has been brewing for some time. I think that when you look at the grooming gangs, for example, I think it was a shame they took the government as long as it did to commit to a national statutory inquiry. But I don't think this is the fault of only public institutions who are nervous over matters of race, political correctness, and there was certainly victim-blaming tendencies within those institutions. I think there's certain communities, especially segregated communities of Mapuri origin, I think they need to have a good look at themselves, to be honest. And I think that, you could talk about family unity, community spirit, tight-knit networks. But
you live in Luton, so you see this every day.
Yeah, but I think that there's an ugly side to that as well, where you have networks where you have these cultural codes based on secrecy and protection. And I think that is very important that with that particular statutory inquiry, that those cultural factors are investigated and how they're associated in terms of Biradari-style clannishness being connected to grooming gang activity.
Great stuff. Nigel Nelson, we spoke a lot on this channel about, I think, the correct thing to do after the Tottenham riots, how they spread across London. The community was engaged with. They were asked for the reasons why. Very sympathetic audience. The white working classes have never had that. Let's be honest. They've been brandished as far right, as racist, as Islamophobic, right from the very beginning, even by the Prime Minister. It was a huge mistake. Let's face it, it was a massive mistake. Can this report, this inquiry, put that right?
Yes, on the basis that I'd agree with Chris, by the way, that the people who are doing it are Home Secretary such as Sajid Javid, John Cruddas. I've known him for years, and he's straight as a die. He's an ideal person to run an inquiry like this, and it is to get the answers. Now, it may be it would turn out the far right were responsible. We know that former EDL members were amongst the rioters.
Please
we know that the former...
this is the problem, mate. Like,
we knew they were there. I'm not saying that's
you constantly focus on a tiny, tiny scintilla of British population
what we know
and
is
make it the number, but you're making the same mistake as Sir Keir Starmer. You need to stop.
I'm making the observation that we do know that people from EDL and the prescribed National Action were among those rioters. Now, that is not to say there aren't underlying problems. That's the point of the inquiry. Let's
Hamas
find out.
supporters might go on Labour rallies. There you go. Does that make them all Hamas supporters?
No, it doesn't.
It's ridiculous, Nigel.
I'm making an observation. I'm not saying that this was prompted by far-right ideology. We just know that some far-right people took advantage of it and were there. The point of this inquiry...
far-right?
Well, if you're a member of the EDL or National...
EDL was disbanded years ago. They don't exist.
No, they don't exist. I mean, Tommy Robinson left it and they disappeared. But former...
They don't exist.
But former EDL members...
It's a phantom.
Exist. Former National Action prescribed groups, so it's now a terrorist group. The members of National Action were seen there too. It doesn't mean they caused it. It doesn't mean there aren't underlying problems. But that's what the inquiry needs to find out.
The inquiry can't be like that. The inquiry can't be like using these tiny percentile of people and fanning it out.
No, but I think the reality is that we've already had research that very much suggests that there wasn't any kind of organised far-right network behind the disorder.
I seriously reckon the kind of people you're talking about that couldn't even form a football team. You know, let alone a serious political movement.
Can I just go back to where the source material here, the people we speak to in close to this inquiry, they told GBNews today it's just too simplistic to blame on the far right.
Good.
They're making the point you're making, Martin. But also Nigel's right, there were elements of it, but it's too simplistic to tar everyone with the same brush. And the big complaint, correctly I think, from viewers and listeners all last August and afterwards, was why is the government saying it's all the far right when it isn't?
Hallelujah to that. Chris Hope, Rakib Hussain, Nigel Nelson, great debate. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I told you it was a triage of excellence. Plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show, but for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first, stay safe, and secondly, here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A85 junction with the A82 at Tyndrum is restricted due to a collision. Approach with caution. The A50 eastbound in Leicestershire between the A6 and M1 junction 24A has an accident. 2 lanes are closed with delays until 7 this evening. In Essex, the M11 southbound between junctions 10 and 8 has a crash, closing 1 lane and causing 50-minute delays. On the M25 around Surrey, a load spillage at junction 8 has closed a lane, with normal conditions expected by 7:22 this evening. And on the trains, cross-country and Elna face disruptions at Durham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
And we're still arguing here in the studio. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon. The headlines at 5:30. Donald Trump has claimed credit for NATO's new defence spending deal. As the summit enters its final hours, he says his push for higher contributions has led to an extra $700 billion pledged across the alliance.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
Lorena has confirmed that a vote on the welfare bill will go ahead. Standing in for the Prime Minister this afternoon at PMQ, she made it clear that Labour won't abandon millions trapped in a failing system. Thousands of Eurostar passengers are suffering severe delays and cancellations after 2 track fatalities and cable theft. Travellers are urged to cancel or postpone their trips. And the King had a royal first today, shaking hands with a gorilla and adopting a patch of the Pacific Ocean at a nature finance summit. Life-sized animal puppets also roamed Lancaster House, giving, well, a whole new meaning to hands-on diplomacy. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 6.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a rather cloudy evening, some outbreaks of rain, these possibly turning thundery across the southeast, but for all it is set to be a warm, muggy and rather uncomfortable night. But it's really this feature towards the Bay of Biscay pushing its way towards the south and southeast that we do need to keep our eye on. A chance we could see some quite heavy showers pushing their way northwards, moving into parts of Kent and East Anglia through the course of the night, and these potentially turning quite thundery and possibly quite blustery through the course of the evening, eventually clearing away towards dawn. But even in the west, some heavy outbreaks of rain pushing through here, particularly across western parts of Scotland. But for all it is set to be warm, muggy, quite uncomfortable. Many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to high teens. So yes, it is set to be a rather wet start, particularly across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall. Still some heavy showers starting to clear their way through East Anglia, and similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, plenty of low cloud around and some outbreaks of rain. And Western Scotland in particular, some quite heavy, possibly blustery outbreaks here too. And through the course of the morning, it's likely many areas will see some outbreaks of rain. But this feature slowly pushing its way eastwards, so across the west, it will start to brighten up from around mid-morning. Plenty of sunny spells by around midday across Northern Ireland, and for all as we head into the afternoon, turning much brighter, more sunshine and feeling a lot fresher too. It's not going to feel quite as muggy, and temperatures on the whole are going to be a degree or two down, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, any remnants of rain across eastern areas soon clearing away. There are still going to be some showers, and then we'll eventually see a return of the cloud and rain push its way back through into the west later Thursday evening. And temperatures are on the up once again. It's likely we'll see another heat wave as we head through the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. Time is 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, over 45,000 asylum applications have been implicitly withdrawn since 2019, according to new analysis of Home Office figures by the Centre for Migration Control. The figures show that could mean that 15,000 asylum seekers, most of whom will have arrived on small boats, have simply been lost to government officials over that period. Now, the analysis reveals the folly of accommodating unvetted individuals in hotels and unsecure accommodation around the country. I'm delighted to joined in the studio by the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, and also by GB News' Senior Political Commentator, Nigel Nelson. Rob, another astonishing set of data. Tell us, what does implicitly withdrawn mean? 45,000 people simply vanished. How?
Yeah, so what happens with an asylum application at the end of that process? There's either several outcomes. They're either granted asylum, they're either rejected asylum, or their application is actually withdrawn. And within that withdrawn category, there are two types of withdrawn. The individual has either decided to leave the UK and said as such to the Home Office, in which case they're explicitly withdrawn. Implicitly withdrawn is where the Home Office has failed to keep contact with that individual. That individual has disappeared for a period of time off the Home Office's radar. They've not returned phone calls. They've not gone to scheduled appointments, which all asylum seekers going through the process are required to attend. So this 45,000 figure effectively represents the maximum number of individuals that the Home Office has lost account for at some period of time. Within that, there is a large number of individuals that the Home Office still does not know where they are. It doesn't know where they've gone to. It doesn't know what they're doing. And I think that's a really worrying thing for people that will be at home, especially when we see the Casey report indicating that we know asylum seekers are now engaged in the grooming gangs. We know that they are coming from nationalities more likely to commit sexual offences. The fact that the Home Office allowed individuals to effectively flee their orbit is an incredibly worrying thing.
Rob Bates, you've also got some analysis here of the nationalities involved, and this is a clear problem that's getting worse over time. It's gone up from 1,800 per year 2019 right the way up to 20,000 in 2023, 15,000 last year, and it will probably come as no surprise to GBNews viewers, some of the nationalities on this list tend to be the nationalities most likely to be imprisoned in the UK. Tell us, what's the national split?
Yeah, so Albania leads the way quite convincingly, which you would expect to an extent given how much of the small boats population they used to constitute. And I think it really reflects that for a lot of Albanians coming across on the small boats, they're not coming to actually seek asylum. Why would they be seeking asylum from Albania? But in reality, what they are doing is to enter that black market. We know that there's a propensity of Albanians to be involved in particular in the drug trade, especially in capital cities and places like Manchester.
Hasn't your previous evidence shown us that like 512% more likely to be jailed for drug offences?
Precisely. Albanians are way off the chart, and I think 1 in 4 or 25% of Albanians in the country have faced some form of interaction with the police at some point as well. So there's a huge problem with that Albanian population. I think what these figures reveal is that Albanians have effectively used the small boats crisis to come into the UK with no real intention of claiming asylum, but they've had jobs lined up for them, they've had networks that they plan to engage with. And I think the main point here is I think the real folly with the hotel system is that there is no safeguards in place to protect the British public. There's no one actually keeping a check on these individuals. Instead, they're just scattered around communities and free to effectively do whatever they so please. And as we're seeing, a large number are choosing to completely flee the process.
Nigel Nelson, this is proof, is it not, that we have open borders, it's a joke, criminality is rife, people can come in on small thingies, they get processed, they get a mobile phone, they get a nice new sweatshirt, they simply vanish, and they're vanishing into the black economy and the dangerous black economy, drugs, prostitution, Albanians driving that. The facts are the facts. This is a total failure of state protection.
Well, the question is, how do you then protect them? These people come into the country and they're not criminals. So what you can't do...
How do you know that?
Well, they're not criminals by coming into the country, as we've discussed before.
They might be criminals in their host nation.
They might be, and I think Rob is right. I mean, certainly I know from my own Home Office contacts that Albanians have been a persistent problem. We end up sending them back home and they come back again 6 months later. So I do appreciate that we have organised gangs who actually do this. What I am saying is that when you're going to deal with this, what do you do? Do we build internment camps and put them in that? Well, you can't keep people...
Good idea, what people would say.
Well, people might say it's a good idea, but you can't, under the law, you can't keep people who've done nothing wrong detained indefinitely.
So you could argue that breaking into a country illegally without documents is a crime in itself, or perhaps it should be.
But it's not. But as long as you claim asylum the moment you get here, and that is the key. We've got to find a way of breaking that link where...
But haven't you just answered your own question? They come in illegally on a dinghy, claim asylum, so suddenly, hey, presto, they're legal, and then when they simply vanish, we can't do anything about it anyway.
Well, the whole thing is, I'm looking for a solution to actually deal with it. And surely in the long term, that solution must be to take away the draw of the Channel, the draw of Calais that brings them over here. And to do that, we must stop asylum only being claimed when they're on British soil.
Rob Bates, what about some alternative solutions to stopping this nonsense? What would you suggest should be done? It's clear at the moment they're making a mockery of our system.
I think a starting point is to get back to what the Conservatives were actually trying to do at the end of their administration, which was to ensure that any individual arriving on a small boat was automatically disbarred from claiming asylum. I think our asylum system isn't up for grabs. It isn't something that every individual around the world has a right to. Actually, it's something that we can actually determine.
Does that increase the backlog? Was the problem with that particular bit of legislation is you ended up in a situation where we said these people couldn't stay, but they couldn't leave either. Exactly. So then the backlog just increased.
So you can't do that on its own. You need to accompany that with a massive increase in the detention facilities, those so-called internment camps that you referenced to. I think it's a very straightforward process. Once you actually start to disentangle yourself from those international laws, start to reduce the power of those immigration tribunals, to say to an individual, if they come into the country illegally, OK, we're going to keep you in a detention facility for 2 to 4 weeks, and then at the end of that process, you will be removed from the country, either back back to your country of origin or to a third country like Rwanda. And I think that's not only will that actually remove some of the backlog, that would actually then as well start to send a message to those people looking to make the crossing as well.
And isn't that the point? Until we get rid of the pull factor, we will never solve this problem. We have the government's own independent border and immigration czar today saying that we can't end the use of asylum hotels, we can't smash the gangs, and so long as we have this asylum system, the problem will never, ever stop. Rob Bates, Nigel Nelson, great debate. Thank you both very much, gentlemen. Now, GB News has contacted the Home Office for a statement, and they told us this. We do not recognise the 15,000 figure, but it is worth noting that most of the data relating to this figure will reflect the work of the previous government. There we go, blaming the Tories. Now, in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Plenty of heat at the moment across the Mediterranean. Most places sunny, and the peak of the heat over the next few days will be through central parts of the Mediterranean. A little cooler for the time being through Spain, Portugal, Canaries as well, where it's, well, typically breezy. And it's also breezy for the Balearics, but we've got this plume of heat now through central parts of Europe. Certainly some unusually high temperatures to Italy, into Croatia, and then later on across parts of Greece. Mid to high 30s widely.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Allergy practitioner Dr. Claire Anyamasigwe joins us now. Good to see you this morning.
Very good.
Does the hot weather necessarily mean more pollen?
It does. It actually accelerates the issue. So you've got pollen from the trees, from the grass, you've got pollution, and now you've got the heat wave as well. So that concoction flares up the skin, especially around the nostrils. We're streaming, we're sniffling, we're itching our eyes. So for me, as an allergist, my practice is about advocating for plant-based antihistamines. So I think the prep starts the night before. You're washing the clothes that you've worn the night, during the day, so you're not bringing pollen into the home. You are eating quercetin-rich ingredients like leeks, garlic, kale. So you can make yourself a lovely soup. I would say use them together. If you are somebody that already eats quercetin-rich foods in your diet, you're doing a more plant-based diet, then you're ahead of the game. But if you're not and you've suddenly been hit this week, 26 Celsius is going higher every day. 16 million of us are suffering with hay fever. 3.4 million of that have hay fever and asthma. So for those sufferers, they're looking for a solution right now. I would combine the two. I would start changing my diet to match what I've suggested, and I would also do what your GP suggests.
Do any of these things, if you take them year in, year out, do they lessen do they have an impact over time and you become less reactive to pollen?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I'm really advocating for children. If we can get parents watching this to start children with natural raw honey, so find out about your local beekeepers, start spreading your natural jams.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 5:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Donald Trump's Nobel Peace Prize nomination has been withdrawn by a senior Ukrainian politician who has accused the US president of appeasing Vladimir Putin. Now, the chairman of Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Committee said he had lost any kind of faith in Mr. Trump's ability to end the war. Now, a few days ago, the president was asked whether he deserved one, and he gave this impartial take on the issue.
Well, they should give me the Nobel Prize for Rwanda, and if you look, the Congo, or you could say Serbia, Kosovo, you could say a lot of them. You could say, I mean, the big one is India and Pakistan. I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times. I should get it for the, I would think the Abraham Accords would be a good one, too. Well, they won't give me a Nobel Peace Prize because they only give it to liberals.
There we go. Deserves it 4 or 5 times, but only liberals get it. Let's now speak with the US political commentator, John Laboutier. John, a pleasure to have you on the show. Is there any merit in that? You know, only liberals win the Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump could probably solve every war on the planet. He could solve global famine. He could solve cancer. And he would still never win a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, first of all, Henry Kissinger got it in 1973 for the Paris Peace Accords. He was not a liberal. And probably there have been some others. But, you know, Trump is obsessed with this. And it goes back to Obama getting elected in 2008. And in January 2009, he's just getting into office when they award him the Nobel Peace Prize. He hadn't done anything yet except get elected and therefore replacing George W. Bush and the Iraq War and all that. And that everything Obama succeeded at has driven Trump crazy. And so, yeah, he wants a Nobel Prize. The thing about the legislator from Ukraine nominating Trump last November when Trump was elected, he wasn't even in office. This guy nominates Trump for the Nobel. Why did he do that? He's sucking up to Trump for Ukraine, trying to get Trump to favor Ukraine, which he should. And now when he clearly isn't favoring Ukraine and he's still favoring Putin all the time.
Well, OK. What about then, John, at The Hague today? You have to admit, you know, suddenly making all NATO nations cough up 5% of GDP. Nobody else has ever managed to do that. He's probably done more in the last 5 months with NATO than has been achieved since 1949. Might that help get Donald Trump that Nobel gong?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think getting budgets up to 5% is the kind of thing the Nobel Committee recognizes as peaceful, although it is. I mean, we know peace through strength. Stronger your military is, the more ability you have to deter war. So I think it's a good thing to do. And look, I don't care if Trump wins a Nobel or not, but I do wish he would put as much attention on stopping Putin from his behavior in Ukraine as he has spent on everything else. He doesn't ever rebuke Putin, and that is a problem.
OK, John, we have to leave it there. John Laboutier, thank you very much for joining us. Quick word from Nigel Nelson in the studio. Do you think Donald Trump will ever get a Nobel Peace Prize?
No. I think actually John Trump's right. It does tend to go to a liberal elite. But he's got to do something to stop a war. And at the moment...
bombing Iranian nuclear bunkers?
Yeah, we don't know that, do we? I mean, in the long term, that could encourage Iran to actually develop nuclear weapons. If they've still got the enriched uranium, which they seem to have, they could actually build the bomb now rather quickly.
It'll be a cold day in hell before Donald Trump got in a war like that. I think on that we can
agree.
No, Nelson, we've part friends as ever on the show. Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much. It's been an excellent show today, but tonight is about to get even better. Up next is the Queen of Primetime Debate, Michelle Dewberry. What's on your menu?
Martin Daubney, thank you very much. I very much enjoyed that show. Well, of course, the conversations do continue because I want to talk to you about NATO. Is it now more lethal than ever? I want to talk about this commission that's going to be looking at the, quote, cracks in our foundation. Apparently, it's going to take a year for that national conversation to conclude. How would you answer the question as to what caused all of that unrest? I've got so much to get stuck into, and he's back, the one and only MP Rupert Lowe. He's alongside me, as is the Labour peer Maurice Glassman. So get yourself a cup of tea or something stronger, and I'll see you in a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a rather cloudy evening, some outbreaks of rain, these possibly turning thundery across the southeast, but for all it is set to be a warm, muggy and rather uncomfortable night. But it's really this feature towards the Bay of Biscay pushing its way towards the south and southeast that we do need to keep our eye on. A chance we could see some quite heavy showers pushing their way northwards, moving into parts of Kent and East Anglia through the course of the night, and these potentially turning quite thundery and possibly quite blustery through the course of the evening, eventually clearing away towards dawn. But even in the west, some heavy outbreaks of rain pushing through here, particularly across western parts of Scotland. But for all, it is set to be warm, muggy, quite uncomfortable. Many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to high teens. So yes, it is set to be a rather wet start, particularly